Oh, here we are.
So Commissioner Israel's still trying.
Howard, I will have a new verbiage to read about communicating with the public because it's a webinar. So after you start the meeting, just throw it back to me. I'll throw it back to you.
Will do. We have Commissioner Israelit. I see.
Hi, I think I wasn't in the panelist panel, so it wasn't letting me in, but then it said I got promoted to a panelist, so I'm now happy to join you all.
Congratulations. And I see we have a number of council members, I think a former council member here. So we ought to get started. I'm calling to order the February 11th City of Burlingame Traffic Safety and Parking Commission meeting. We are meeting this evening in a new for us webinar format, and as such I'm going to briefly hand it back over to our senior civil engineer, Mr. Andrew Wong, who's going to explain the public comment rules and engagement for this format.
Thank you, Chair Wetton. So as Chair said, we're using Zoom webinar tonight. And this city is using the Zoom webinar platform to conduct public meetings. So there's a couple ways the public can communicate. The public can raise their hand and use the chat feature. Please note that the chat messages will go to all the panelists. Alternatively, the panel can use public comment at burlingame.org to provide their public comment. That's it.
That's it. Okay, so with that, we can move to the Pledge of Allegiance. We have our own flag here for the Traffic Safety and Parking Commission, so I'm going to bring it out. And I'll stand, and you all can stand if they are able, and we'll say the pledge. Make sure it's on camera. There you go. All right. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, thank you to our flag bearer. And with that, we can proceed to item 3 on the agenda, which is the roll call.
Commissioner Lee,
Present.
Commissioner Israelit,
Here.
Vice Chair Martos,
Here.
Chair Wetton.
Here. Okay, with that concluded, we will move to the approval of minutes. Has everybody had a chance to review the minutes, and are there any comments on the minutes? Okay, hearing.
Go
ahead. Go ahead.
Sorry to interrupt. Yeah, I had one update to the minutes that I submitted late this afternoon. I don't know if it was added to the final version, but on the discussion that we had, and I brought up Lion Hogue, there were a couple of traffic circles that were mentioned. One was at Howard and Bancroft. The other one said Bloomfield and Bancroft, which run parallel. I think it should have said Bayswater and Bancroft. So if that change could be made, I think the minutes are accurate. And I believe it was either Mr. Wong or Ms. Mai who stated the other traffic circle.
Thank you. We'll make that. We'll check it and if it's necessary, we'll make that change and then correct it in the minutes.
So if there are no objections to that change or other objections to the minutes, we can entertain a motion to approve. Okay. Commissioner Lee, I see your hand, but you're on mute. So.
All right, I'll move. We approve the minutes with the correction we may have to make.
Okay. Does anybody second?
I second that motion.
Okay, all in favor? We got to take a roll call. So all in favor, and I'll let Liliana take the roll call.
Commissioner Lee,
Aye.
Commissioner Israelit,
Aye.
Vice Chair Martos,
All right, aye.
Chair Wetton.
Aye. Okay, that's 4 in favor, none opposed, and the motion carries 4-0, 0, no abstentions. That takes us to item 5, public comment. So is there any individuals? Oh, I gotta read the Brown Act notice. Sorry. Okay. Members of the public may speak on any item not on the agenda. Members of the public wishing to suggest an item for a future commission agenda may do so during this public comment period. The Ralph M. Brown Act, the state local agency open meeting law, prohibits the commission from acting on any matter that is not on the agenda. The commission chair may adjust the time limit in light of the number of anticipated speakers. So just in plain English, if you're here for an item on the agenda tonight, you will have an opportunity to comment when we cover it. So this is for anything that's not on the agenda, which we can't engage in any discussion on, but we can consider it for a future agenda item. So if there's anybody out there who would like to comment, this would be the time. Okay. I'm going to take the silence as meaning there's no public comment, so we can close that item and move on to the discussion and action items, which I am looking forward to tonight. So we're going to start off, and I think this is why we have the audience we do, with the proclamation we're issuing for former Commissioner Jeff Launder, who is here with us tonight. I'm going to, I think my plan is let's read the proclamation. We can take public comments for folks who are here. There may be more than we can see on the screen, so we'll try and keep it brief per person. And then if the commissioners here have any final comments, I'll allow that as well. And then we'll move on to the next item. I also, Mr. Wong, I understand that Commissioner Launder has a physical embodiment of the proclamation that was delivered to him.
Correct, he does. And upon your order, he'll open it up.
Okay. Well, I will so order that. Jeff, you're free to open it now, and we're going to go ahead and read it. I hope the other 3 commissioners have a copy they can read from. I think my plan is, because I didn't want to just dominate and read the whole thing myself. I think it's a group thing. I'm going to ask everybody to just do one recital at a time. We'll go in the round. And there's only 4 of us, so it should be simple. So Commissioner Lee, I'd like you to go first. Commissioner Israelit, then Vice Chair Martos, and then myself. And there's 7 of these, so I guess I'll only get to do one. But I'll lead it off. Oh, go ahead, Commissioner Launder.
If I could, I'd like to say something first.
Okay.
Thank you. So, Chair Wetton, Commissioners, Mr. Wong, Mayor O'Brien, and all the former mayors that are here, as well as Mr. Spansel and staff. This is the 3rd time I've been able to express my thoughts and thanks related to my tenure on the commission. The first 2 times you all had no choice. I was still a colleague, but now you're actually inviting me back, which is very touching. The other day, Mr. Wong, as we know, dropped off a package at my home, and I promised to wait until now to open it. I still haven't opened it, but I didn't promise to open it without making a few remarks beforehand. I thought about buying a cake and maybe some champagne, as I could plainly see that there weren't any in the package. Certainly there wasn't a brand new Tesla in there either. Burlingame has changed quite a bit over the past 12 years, and I'm proud to say that the commission has weighed in on all sorts of issues related to traffic, safety, and parking. Our thoughtful and often difficult decisions have impacted each and every major project in the city, from the reopening of Hoover School and the expansion of Mercy High to improving the safety around each of our schools. We also were involved with the enhancement of our 2 overpasses over the 101 freeway and various bayfront improvements. the rest. The commissioner's presence at the Fresh Market provided a forum to interact with the public. And to my knowledge, we are the only commission that do that on a regular basis. We also provided input regarding the new Peninsula Hospital and related healthcare services as well. Our involvement included the new community center, downtown plan, parking lots in both downtowns, parking structure, general plan, El Camino rehabilitation plan, pedestrian and cycling safety, the electric bike program, and EV charging stations. And most recently, the COVID-related street closures and park lift, and countless others. These are just the ones that I could put my mind to in the last few minutes to add to my comments. These things continue to change and evolve, and many other issues still require your consideration and input. There's the railroad grade separation at Broadway, the proposed addition of the 101 South ramps at Peninsula, the creation of a new neighborhood in the Rollins area, and finalizing the El Camino Real plan, and increased use of rideshare alternatives and EV infrastructure. And I'm certain there are and will be more. And if this is not enough, there's always the upcoming creation of 5 districts in Burlingame, starting with the 2022 council elections. This will be an interesting and critical discussion for all of Burlingame. Winston Churchill supposedly once remarked, "So much done, so much yet to be done." I know you will continue the hard work to maintain Burlingame as a jewel of the peninsula. My friends, thank you for everything. And now I can open up the package if I can figure out what to do.
So Commissioner former, I keep saying Commissioner Launder, and it's going to be hard to get out of the habit. Former Commissioner Launder, while you get your package open, we're going to give you a preview of what it says. So I'm going to start off by reading the part in bold. There you go. Commissioner Lee, you'll start off, we'll follow that order and keep going until we're done. So, proclamation commending and recognizing Jeff Launder as, oh, there we go. Commending and recognizing Jeff Launder as Commissioner to the Traffic Safety and Parking Commission since October 2008 to December 2020, serving as chair in 2011 and 2015.
Whereas Mr. Launder served honorably as a commissioner of the Traffic Safety and Parking Commission and twice as its chair. And
whereas Mr. Launder served as an effective member of the Bicycle Pedestrian Advisory Committee, and
throughout Mr. Launder's 12 years of service on the Traffic Safety and Parking Commission, Mr. Launder demonstrated extraordinary patience with his fellow commissioners and committee members, and
Mr. Launder was consistently a source of wisdom and guidance for all of the commissioners who had the privilege of serving with him. And
whereas Mr. Launder was a consistent volunteer for the unglamorous, difficult, but necessary work of a commissioner, performing traffic and parking spot counts on many occasions, and
moved. Sorry. Thank you. Mr. Launder was consistently the most informed traffic safety and parking commissioner, providing key information about grants and the activities of other governing bodies. And
whereas Mr. Launder led the Traffic Safety and Parking Commission's efforts to make itself available to the public at the Burlingame Farmers Market and was always excellent company to his fellow commissioners there, along with the Citizens Environmental Council.
Now, therefore, the Traffic Safety and Parking Commission of the City of Burlingame does hereby commend Jeff Launder for his patience, wisdom, efforts, and service in the improvement of Burlingame's traffic safety and parking conditions. In witness whereof, I hereunto our hands and cause the seal of the City of Burlingame to be affixed to this the 11th day of February 2021. And at least in the one that Mr. Launder has, it should have my signature on it as chair. So, yes, every bit of that is well deserved, especially the patience part, because I was probably the one testing it. So with that, I want to invite public comment. I'll start with, by the way, I should say again, if I didn't say it on the record before, I am very grateful for Mayor O'Brien, Councilmember Brownrigg, Councilmember Beach, former Mayor Nagel. I think I'm seeing everyone. I'm very grateful for you taking the time to come tonight. I think you're on camera. There may be others who are not on camera. And with that, I'm going to give everybody an opportunity to give a brief public comment to let former Commissioner Launder know you're here and express your appreciation. So I don't know if there's a hand raising feature or I can simply call people out and at least the ones who are on camera, and then let Liliana take care of the rest. Mayor O'Brien, as our current mayor, maybe I'll start with you if you don't mind me putting you on the spot.
Thank you, Chair Wheaton. Thank you for inviting me to this commission meeting. I've known former Commissioner Launder for quite some time now, and thank him for his service. 3 terms is a long time to be on the traffic and safety, and you've accomplished a lot during that time. We have kept you quite busy, and the council always appreciates the advice and recommendations that come from the Traffic and Safety Commission. Jeff, I know you've been very dedicated to this commission, and I remember one of the times that you were doing the spot checking on Broadway in your chair, counting all the cars that were going over the railroad tracks. And I just want to thank you for the endless hours, your dedication, your commitment for traffic and safety, and also other areas in Burlingame. So I know you will stick around and help us in any way you can. You're always there when needed. So I really thank you for your service. I know you will continue to do so. And I do want to say that Councilmember Coulson wanted to be here this evening, but she does have a Peninsula Clean Energy meeting this evening, but she did want me to mention that she also congratulates you on your accomplishment here in the city of Burlingame. So thank you.
Well, thank you, Anne. I appreciate those comments. And I also would like to add that you and Terry Nagel were on the council that originally appointed me. And I appreciate both of your support over the past 12 years. So that's greatly appreciated. Thank you.
Okay, well, with that, I don't see any hand features, so I'm going to just go to Councilmember Brownrigg. This is just about where you're landing on my eye line for the Zoom. Councilmember Brownrigg, why don't you proceed?
I appreciate that. I do see a hand feature, but I'm happy to go. I have to say I came here because I was going to comment on the parking restrictions on the Highland Garage. So this was really news to me that we're honoring Jeff too, but no, I'm kidding. You know, people like Jeff Launder, and there are other people like Jeff on this phone call, are really the backbone of our community. People who work hard every day to make Burlingame a little bit better. Now, you know, Jeff is not flashy. Nobody would call Jeff flashy. But if you needed chalk line striped for the green ribbon fair at 6 in the morning, it was Jeff who you called and who showed up. If you needed somebody to do traffic counts for some obscure parking lot in Burlingame to see if we could do something better with the parking lot. It was Jeff who did those parking counts. You want to figure out whether the Bayside can take more traffic, then you go for a walk with Jeff and you talk to him about traffic. You need somebody to think about Burlingame for the next 20 years, not the next 2 months, but the next 20 years, as we did with the general plan, which hadn't been updated since 1969. You put Jeff on the panel because you know that he will bring a common sense and a love for this community, but also a willingness to be innovative and to think about the next generation. If you want to get a heads up, there's no one better than Jeff. I can't tell you how many times something would bubble up from the Traffic Commission that was going to turn out to be a little bit of a bomb for council. And I'd get a phone call, better you hear this twice than not at all. And I'd think to myself, I don't know, maybe I don't really want to hear it, but I always appreciated knowing. And I would have to say that if you ever need somebody to give you a vicarious vacation, then you just ask Jeff Launder where he and Bernardine are going next. And that's a great way to enjoy yourself, even if you're stuck at home. In seriousness, Jeff has consistently, year after year, brought that common sense and hard work and integrity and a Midwesterner's impatience with posers to the job, and has given all of us great counsel and helped all of us make Burlingame the great city in which we live. So I just couldn't be more proud to call Jeff a friend, and couldn't be more amazed by the amount of work that he has done for our city. So thank you, Mr. Chairman, for making this event possible.
Well, thank you, Michael. Whatever I've done, chalking or counting, certainly pales in comparison to what you and all the other council members do day in and day out. And I know you're shaking your head, and I know that that's just being polite, but it's true that it just pales in comparison. So I can't imagine ever doing that job. So if it's something that I wouldn't or couldn't do, I admire people who do that. So I admire all of you for doing what you do. So thank you again, Michael. I appreciate it. And I value your friendship as well as the friendship of everybody here. I noticed that Ms. Beatty is here, and my colleague Mike McCord from the CEC is here. So I appreciate their being here as well. So thank you, and let's continue. I'm sorry, Howard, that
I don't know what you're apologizing for. I thank you, by the way. Thank you, Council Member Brownrigg, for your comments. And you would think I would have figured out Zoom by now. I do now see the hand raise feature, and I see that Council Member Beach actually has her hand raised the correct way. So I'll go to her next.
Thank you, Chair Wetton. Appreciate the opportunity to follow Mayor O'Brien's comments. We're spot on. So we're Councilmember Brownriggs. I won't repeat and be a broken record, but I'm so glad that, Michael also pointed out, Jeff's work went beyond even just Teaspoon, right? He was on the Envision Burlingame. I'm sure former Mayor Nagel may speak and say a few words about his incredible leadership with the Environmental Council of Burlingame. I'd be hard pressed to think of a goals session or a community meeting that he ever missed. Super engaged citizen. But I just want to touch upon what I always appreciated about Jeff too, is he took that traffic safety parking knowledge, knowing Burlingame's issues inside and out, and then also was so generous with his time and always went a step further, whether it was participating as your VPAC liaison. I got to see him in action there many times. The El Camino Real Task Force for sure, but many folks may not realize he also spends a tremendous amount of time on the Citizens Advisory Committee for the San Mateo County Transportation Authority, which I serve on the board of directors. And that's $3 billion of oversight of infrastructure tax money that's being invested over the next 15 years, where those, Measure A and Measure W, that they're reading every board packet, they're weighing in, and we value, just like we value your input at the Teaspoon, we're valuing the Citizens Environmental Council's, the CAC for the TA's input. And so he's got this inside line and really understanding how grants work at the county level and bringing that information back here. I think that was mentioned in your proclamation. That's really valuable, and appreciate his time there and his effort above and beyond in so many ways. If there's one thing I know about Jeff, is he loves being on a team. And we will certainly miss Jeff being on the official Teaspoon team, but you will always be Team Burlingame, Jeff Launder. And so we're not saying goodbye. We're just, transitioning a little bit. But thank you for your many years of service, and thanks to all the commissioners for all you continue to do. I know I got to say a few words back in November when Jeff left, but I'm just so delighted at the official meeting I could, wave and say thank you again. So have a great evening.
Thank you so much. I appreciate all your remarks, and it's an honor to be, serving with you and the others. And I especially admire you, because anybody who can jump out of a perfectly good aeroplane, not once, but a half a dozen times, certainly deserves my admiration. So thank you. Well, maybe so, but there's no way that I would ever do it.
Well, thanks, Jeff.
Sure.
I see that former Mayor Nagel has her hand raised, and it's nice to see you again, former Mayor Nagel. And,
well, nice to see you too.
It's a pleasure to have you here. Thank you for coming.
Well, I wouldn't have missed this for anything, because Jeff is very special. He's one of those indispensable people who loves Burlingame so much that he is there whatever the need is. He's a tireless volunteer. And frankly, I can't imagine him retiring from anything. He's going to still be busy, I'm sure. But, in addition to all his service on the traffic safety, parking, all of the city commissions and so forth, he was also on the El Camino task force. That was like a year and a half, right, of participation. I'm sure you're still working on that. But his extraordinary accomplishments with the Citizens Environmental Council of Burlingame have been out of this world. He's the guy who would be there at 8:30 in the morning on Sunday setting up the fresh market booth, and he would be there again at 1:30 to break it down. He's that kind of person. And he also was instrumental in, I don't know if you remember our Cool California Challenge, but boy, he led that thing and did an extraordinary job. He has been on the Citizens Environmental Council since the beginning, and he has a real passion for the work that we're doing in trying to address climate change. But most of all, he's a wonderful friend. He's got a great sense of humor. And as someone else noted, he loves to travel. So as soon as this virus lifts, I know he's going to be off to some extraordinary destination. But we know you will always come back, Jeff, and we appreciate you.
Well, Terry, I appreciate your comments, and you've been a true friend for more than a dozen years. And
Long time.
You're probably one of the more influential people who got me roped into all this stuff in the first place.
Nice choice, huh?
So thank you for doing that, because I may not have done it on my own. So I appreciate that, Terry.
Well, we appreciate you.
Thank you.
I'm going to move on. I see that Leslie Beatty, chair of the Bicycle Pedestrian Advisory Committee, is here. Both former Commissioner Launder and I have served with her, and I'm excited to let her speak right now.
Yeah, so Jeff, I have only really known you over the last year, and Jeff came on to BPAC as the TSPC liaison, replacing Howard, and he talks a lot less than Howard. And so at first I didn't know what to make of it, but I figured out pretty quickly that Jeff is a lot fancier than he lets on. And so I learned early to listen for when he said something and exactly what he said, because while he did not talk all the time, when he had something to say, it was always super relevant and needed to be paid attention to. He was just a great presence in our committee. He's calm and reasoned, and he has a way of just getting everyone to settle down, which I really appreciated. And the last thing, Jeff, I really appreciate you is how supportive you've been of me. So Jeff has sent me so many nice emails saying I'm doing a good job, and I have really appreciated that support from you, and we miss having you at our meetings.
Well, Thank you, Leslie. I truly enjoyed attending the BPAC meetings and providing whatever input I might have provided. I never thought of myself as a calming factor because I'm maybe calm on the outside, but it's not the way it is on the inside. So I do have a passion for lots of things, including the city of Burlingame, including bike and pedestrian issues, as well as traffic and safety and parking and environmental issues as well. So thank you, Leslie, for coming tonight and saying those kind words.
Thank you, Chair Beatty. I really appreciated your comments, having personally been there. and I agree with all of them. I don't want to put anyone on the spot, but I did invite, and I know he's here, Mike McCord, who helps lead the Citizens Environmental Council. And so, Mike, I don't want to put you on the spot, but if you want to say something, I didn't want to pass over you just because you didn't click the hand function on the Zoom. So,
well, since you called for me, I didn't get up my green screen and my fancy background here.
Sorry.
But anyway, yeah, I mean, it's always a marvel to me to hear this kind of stuff because, I know Jeff almost entirely through CEC and from being a neighbor. And so I would echo everything that Terry has said. He's just been instrumental. He's never accepted a position with our group. He's just done a ton of work for us. He's always somebody who will come in and get a job done for us. And it's also been a treat to sit with him at those fresh market tables and get all the gossip and the lowdown. He seems to know everybody in Burlingame, and every facet of the government. So half of what I know about Burlingame, I think I've learned just from sitting and gossiping with Jeff. So for me, this retirement of his is not a big deal because I figure I'm going to be able to just continue the same relationship with Jeff that I've had for the last 10 or 12 years, since we met. So it's been a treat working with you, Jeff, and it'll be good to continue.
Likewise, Mike, I plan to continue for as long as you guys will have me. And I think I've probably been chased by half the dogs in Burlingame and probably had a half the doors in Burlingame slammed in my face at various occasions, but the other half of doors were great encounters. So I value that immensely.
Thank you, Mike, for making it tonight. I really appreciate you coming on, and I'm sorry to put you on the spot. I don't see any hands raised from anyone who's not a commissioner.
Adrian Lee.
I'm coming to the commissioner. So just 1 second. It's going to go to you. Just a moment. I just was going to say I don't see any hands raised from anyone else in the public. So with that, I will go to the commissioners now. We'll start with Commissioner Lee. We'll take just a brief minute or two. I think we've all said goodbye to Jeff already, but it's worth saying it now that we have the audience here. So Commissioner Lee, please proceed.
Thank you. So I also met Jeff, like Leslie, on the BPAC committee when he joined us, and did notice how calm you were, Jeff, and how insightful and well thought your comments were. And you gave us a lot of guidance, which I thought was invaluable with your background and your knowledge of Burlingame. It brought a lot of wisdom to our committee. And then more recently, when COVID first started, remember when we had Safe Streets and we had the Safe Street in front of Burlingame High? Well, I was out there looking at what the city had done to the Safe Street in front of Burlingame High, out there walking one morning. And who do I bump into? But Jeff, of course, right? So we end up walking the Oak Grove, California side, the Oak Grove, Caroline side, walk down, check out the walking and the biking and the scooter people and the rollerblade people and the kids in the wagon. And this whole time we're chatting about, of course, Burlingame and the traffic and safety and crossing intersections and what it's like. And I just want to say thank you, Jeff, for sharing so much wisdom that day with me and walking and seeing our Safe Street and that whole area by VHS through your eyes. It was very enlightening, and I enjoyed getting to know you that morning. And I sit now on the committee as a commissioner because I filled your seat. As I said before, and I said to you, I have some very big shoes to fill. So thank you, and I hope to do half as well as you have done on this commission. Thanks, Jeff.
Sure. Thank you, Adrian. I appreciate those comments, and I'm sure you'll more than fill the shoes, and certainly you'll be an addition and a welcome addition to the Traffic Safety and Parking Commission. So welcome, and I must say I miss seeing Commissioner Bush, but I understand that he's moved on, and hopefully we could have another very well qualified commissioner. I'm sure we will to fill his seat as well. So Adrian, thank you for stepping up, and thank you for filling my seat, and it's a joy to see that there's so many able and willing people here in Burlingame to volunteer and to fill these positions. I don't think many cities can say that.
Okay, Commissioner Israelit, you have an opportunity to speak.
Well, there's, what can I add? But I just wanted to thank Jeff from the bottom of my heart for sort of guiding me and taking me patiently, showing me how things work as a new commissioner. You and I worked together on the school safety subcommittee first, which I had, a true passion for, and you really help things happen and help facilitate our meetings. I don't think I would have accomplished anything without you. So thank you so much. And then the following year, as vice chair, I would occasionally have to lead meetings, and Jeff was always on my left, patiently writing little notes or whispering, "Seeing none, I now move to," and letting me know the proper protocol and what was next. So again, thank you for training me, and I will really miss having you on the committee.
Well, thank you, and I appreciate your comments as well, and I truly enjoyed helping you out whenever I could. But certainly you caught on very quickly and did a fine job, and especially being chair after only being on the commission for 2 years, you chair the third year, so that's an accomplishment itself. And I still remember talking to you about barbecue in upstate New York.
Oh, yes.
It seems that the people who owned the barbecue shop, their parents were people we met on one of our travels. And I've never been there, but I'm certainly, if I'm ever up that way, I'm going to stop in and, on your recommendation alone, have some delicious barbecue.
That's right. I completely forgot about that. In little upstate New York town where my son went to college, there's a barbecue place that's really fabulous in the middle of nowhere, and they were catering our son's graduation party, and I happened to mention it to Jeff, and of course Jeff knows the mom of the owners in the middle of nowhere. So that was really serendipitous.
Thank you so much. Vice Chair Martos, you've served with Commissioner Wander almost as long as I have. So I'm interested to hear what you have to say.
Well, thank you, Chair Wetton. Jeff, it has been a pleasure. I have been working with Jeff for over 10 years. I'm a big fan of Team Launder. He's a team player. He's a compassionate, very intelligent leader. I've experienced all that personally, and a great mentor. I echo some of the things that Commissioner Israelit said when I was chair and Jeff was vice chair. Oftentimes he would point out on the agenda things that I might have missed or something I misspoke, and kept me on the up and up, kept the meeting moving along. But Jeff, it's been a long journey for us. Started working together with the Burlingame Neighborhood Network. You happen to be a neighbor of mine, and so that was very convenient that we could work together. And then I think you were the one that convinced me to join the commission. I knew you were on the commission and you told me what you thought of the commission, and it was very encouraging. So I threw my hat into the ring and joined the commission. We worked together at the farmer's market, and that's always, as Mike McCord said, you learn a lot sitting with Jeff at the farmer's market. I'll be honest with you, Jeff, most of the reason I went to farmer's market was to hang out with you and talk about the city and issues and find out about your travels. Very interesting, especially riding camels and some of the lands that you were in. Very interesting stuff. But we worked together in the general plan, and Jeff was my partner in a couple of the discussion groups on the general plan, and you really learn where his heart is and intelligent ideas that he has, and he really does have Burlingame in his heart. So it's been wonderful, and the mentoring, I can't say enough. It's extraordinary patience, and I happen to get that part of the proclamation, his extraordinary patience, and thank you for being patient with me. We're neighbors, Jeff, so I hope that in the future we can work together. If we don't, then I always look forward to our time together as friends and neighbors. So please don't hesitate to drop me a line about any concerns that you have in our neighborhood, or if you just want to grab a cup of coffee, because it's really been my pleasure to work with you, and I'm so fortunate to have you as a friend. So I wish you all the best, and I hope we can stay in touch.
Thank you very much, John. I appreciate your comments, and I too would want to keep in touch with you and everybody. And I'll be around, and I will let people know what I think of things as they come up. And we are neighbors. Yeah, I'm sure we'll see each other. I do walk by your house almost on a daily basis. Sometimes you're out there, sometimes you're not, but I will definitely say hi when I see you, and wish you all the best as well. And if I'm the one that encouraged you, I'm glad I did, because you've been a good addition to the commission, and certainly bring a different perspective with your engineering background and your concern for safety and the schools especially. So I appreciate that, John, and I want to thank you for your kind words as well.
So I'm not going to go next because I want to give Mr. Wong and Leisha, if she would like to, also an opportunity to say something before I say something and close this. So Mr. Wong, if you want to add anything.
And Jeff and yourself are the original 5 when I first started in Burlingame working with the Traffic Safety and Parking Commission. There's Carolyn Serrano, Mark Novorosky, and Nick. So they're gone, and now Jeff goes. But I appreciate the welcoming that you guys all gave when I first started. It made me feel here at home that I was able to try to do my best. But what I do remember is, Jeff, when he was chair, much to the, as staff, Jeff, we have a 2-minute time limit on public speaking for folks coming up. Jeff extended that time for most folks because he said if you were coming down to the meeting, making the effort, he was going to give you the time. And I always remember that. And I do appreciate that because he is looking out for the city. But the city is very lucky to have someone like Jeff in it. So appreciate everything you've done, Jeff.
Thank you, Andy. I appreciate your comments as well. And I think I was probably called out a little bit for doing that, for extending the comments. But I feel like, like you said, if people had the time and wanted to make their voices heard, that we should listen to their voices, even if it meant an extra few minutes added to our meeting. So I'm glad that I did that, and hopefully not too many people were overwhelmed by the long comment period sometimes. But I appreciate that, and I appreciate you putting up with all of us at the beginning. And I know how much work that you guys do with the staff, and especially these days when things are just turned upside down, and a lot of times we're just basically flying by the seat of our pants trying to make the best decisions for the city. And I appreciate that from you and all the staff, and as well as the council and other members of the commission. So thank you.
So Alicia, if you'd like an opportunity, go ahead.
Jeff, unfortunately, I haven't had much an opportunity to work with you, but the few times that we've had some email exchanges, I can tell that by your words and your wisdom, everything that was said this evening is absolutely true. And I look forward to continuing to have, open discussions with you. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Alicia. Like you said, we have not had much of a relationship over the year or so, but I appreciate your offer to have open ears. And if anybody, you're the patient one and the one that's always calm and collected. So I appreciate that. Thank you.
So, so I get the privilege of going last here, and I'm going to try and run counter to my reputation. I'm going to be brief. I did have a chance in Jeff's last two meetings, because we had an unexpected one, to really speak from the heart. So I'm just going to say, I think the most important things for the sake of this audience, because Jeff already knows how I feel. One thing that I was reminded to write down, and I wrote it down in all caps here so I wouldn't forget from someone else's comments, is to thank Bernadine, because she has given a lot of time up with her husband to this commission, or at least this commission, obviously other things, but at least this commission. And it is very generous of her to give up her Thursday evenings once a month with her husband, and it's every month, to have him serve the city of Burlingame. And I don't know if she's within earshot, but I want Jeff, if you'd be so kind, if she's not, to pass that along. I think it's important. Second, I would note, I served on the ECR corridor task force with Jeff, the BPAC, as well as traffic commission. All I can say very quickly is to echo everything that everybody has said here, from the patience and the mentorship and the selfless service. The traffic count story that sticks in my head is we needed to do traffic counts for a crossing guard on ECR for elementary school kids. Jeff does not have any elementary school kids. He has no personal stake in that. And yet he still was up at, up and out across town before 8 a.m. taking traffic counts for that. And that, I think, is just so illustrative of the kind of person and commissioner Jeff was. And so I'm only going to say one thing, which is, from what you've heard tonight, I will say, that I've been serving with Jeff, I think, at least 10 years. And he definitely made me a much better commissioner and public servant. But after everything you heard tonight, that's easy to say. I would go further and say I am a better person because I've been sitting with Jeff for this past decade. I'm a better listener. I'm a better citizen. I hope I am a better friend. And that is all because I've been serving with Jeff Launder on this commission for 10 years. And I think that's I want to say only that because I think that's really the important sentiment for me. And with that, Jeff, you get final words, and then we'll have to move on to the normal BPAC stuff.
So Howard, I truly appreciate those comments. I enjoy your company as well. I truly value your friendship. And actually Bernadine on Thursday nights, that's probably her most happy time. When she's didn't hear what you said, but I'll certainly pass it along to you. And the final thing I might add is either the last meeting or the meeting the last, you called me a mensch. And for anybody who doesn't know what the word mensch means, I suggest you all look it up. But it means a decent human being, and that's probably the best thing that anybody's ever called me. So I truly appreciate that, Howard. So thank you.
I certainly stand by it. And I will say, this is not always an easy job. It is doable because we have the camaraderie that we do. And, we do have time after the meetings to catch up. And I love hearing about the travels and going to the Fresh Market for the same reasons. And I'm hoping that we get you coming back now and then. I guess we'll be doing Bernadine a favor. And we get to see and hear more from you. And I look forward to seeing you regularly when it's safe for you to get anywhere near me, which I hope is soon.
I still have all the traffic commission paraphernalia, if you will, for the farmers market. So I plan to be at the farmers markets representing the CEC. So you can come by, and I'm sure set up with us, and you can listen to my stories. Well, like story time.
Well, I know I speak for all of us when I say, we really look forward to that again. And I think it puts a fine point on where we are with COVID, that we have to kind of sit and wait in abeyance to do all this stuff that we love doing with you and look forward to doing with you again. And we're just kind of stuck in this pause, but I think, we all see the light at the end of the tunnel.
Yeah, absolutely. So I wish you everybody the best, and for everybody to be well. And hopefully by the summertime, we will all be vaccinated and we'll all be on the road to some sort of normal life again. So thank you all, and thank you, Chair Whitten, and like I said, all the current and past mayors and different staff people, and my fellow commissioners as well. So I want to thank you all again, and I'm not going away, I'm just transitioning. So
well, if we were a rock band, we'd play you out, but we're not. So with that, I'm going to close this item. We're going to move on to BPAC, and I just will say one thank you, of course, again, former Commissioner Launder, and thank you to everybody who came and spent the time tonight. There it is. Yeah, let's clap for that.
Yeah, thank you.
Very nice. I appreciate it. So it's from there, it's kind of tough to follow that and go on to BPAC. And I'm sorry, Chair Beatty, it's a tough act to follow. But with that, I'm going to gavel out the proclamation for Commissioner Launder with a lot of love. So, okay. So with that, BPAC.
Woo, that was a buildup. Okay, so we spent a lot of our meeting talking about what is going to be possible to do for bike and pedestrian in 2021. We've had a lot of help from Leisha, who has explained to us what the budget scenarios are and has invited us to give feedback on projects that we think should make the top of the list. In our meeting, we thought it would make sense if you also wanted to look at the same spreadsheet and provide feedback. And so we would love to put an agenda item or ask for an agenda item to be put on your calendar for next month to talk about those items in more depth and look at the spreadsheet together, basically.
That sounds like a great idea to me, not to speak out of order, but yeah, we'll at the end of the meeting, we talk about agenda. I'm making a note and make sure we don't lose sight of that. We're able to discuss doing exactly that.
Cool.
Is there, I jumped in, Leslie, is there anything else you want to cover here?
No, I think some folks will have feedback on the Oak Grove signal, but we'll do that in the.
Okay, great. Any other commissioners, anything before, or should we just go to Oak Grove? Anybody? Okay. All right, on to Oak Grove. Thank you, Chair Beatty.
All right, thank you, Chair Whitten. So as you know, tonight, I think this one's been coming for many of you, wanted to talk about the Oak Grove Carolyn intersection. This intersection is a little challenged. It's got a unique, kind of unusual traffic control where 3 approaches are stop controlled and there's a free moving one, and there's reasons for that, but it does create issues, particularly not only operations and who gets the right of way there, but also in pedestrians. If pedestrians crossing that one approach, it'll hold up. So to do that, to try to improve upon that, one of the options is a traffic signal. But even with a signal, there's some benefits we have to balance. Those include some of the level of service, as we call it, at the adjacent intersection. In order to balance it, you're going to impact that one. And so tonight, to talk about that balance, we have Steve Fitzsimons with W-Trans, and he'll kind of go over some of the options we looked at and how we tried to best balance and give you guys something to look at. So with that, I'll turn over to Mr. Fitzsimons.
But before you do, Mr. Wong, very quickly, Mr. Fitzsimons, I just want to thank you for patiently waiting through our walk through history. It's important to all of us, but you obviously are not a Burlingamer, so you've been very patient sort of sitting through it so we could get to your item. I appreciate your time.
It's always a pleasure to talk about someone who's obviously held in high esteem, and there's a lot of affection going around. It was really fun to listen to. Yeah, I have a presentation to show you. I'll share my screen now. Hopefully everybody could see that. I'm unable to see the audience, and while I'm in presentation mode, I can only see a few faces. So maybe Andy, you would be so kind if you can see people wanting to stop and ask me questions to let me know that, because I won't have any other way of knowing. Okay, so I'm here to talk about Oak Grove Avenue and potential traffic signal improvement that would include minor upgrades to the existing signal on California Drive and signalization of the Carolyn Avenue intersection. I'll be going through a brief overview of the traffic operations study that was done, addressing what we call no build, and the no is in quotes. It's not the typical no build. It means no build at Carolyn Avenue. But at California Drive, there are a couple of minor improvements that are being considered. One of the potential improvements is called flashing yellow arrow traffic signal operation, and I'll be going through in some detail what that means. I hope that if you guys are already totally conversant in this, that you'll just kind of give me the move it along signal or something like that, because otherwise I'll be talking for about 20 minutes. We'll touch briefly on rail safety improvements with the proximity to the tracks. That's going to be a big issue here, and people are going to want to know that whatever gets put in is going to be safe. And then at the very end, a very brief mention of the schedule if this project is approved for continued work. So traffic operations and the no build operations means that traffic control will stay similar to what it is now. At the existing signal at California Drive, at a minimum, it would be improved to upgrade the pedestrian signals to the countdown type. And there's a picture of a countdown pedestrian signal to the right, where instead of just seeing the flashing hand flashing once per second, you would also see the numbers count down with the remaining seconds for time available to cross the street. The California intersection currently operates at level service C in both the morning and evening peaks on a weekday. It currently operates east-west along Oak Grove Avenue in what we call split phasing, which means when eastbound turns green, westbound has a red, and then it switches and westbound turns green and eastbound has red. And this phasing may be revised to flashing yellow arrow operation, and I'll be going through that in a moment. In the AM peak, if it's changed to flashing yellow arrow operation, the level service would remain at C. The stop delay would decrease slightly. Flashing yellow arrow operation is typically a little bit more efficient. In the evening peak, the LOS would also stay the same level service C. In this case, just because of the way the volumes flow through in the evening peak, the delay would increase slightly. But both of these changes are slight, as you'll see in this level service and delay slide. All the level service values are shown as C. At the California Drive intersection, the existing condition in the morning is 32.4 seconds of delay. That's very difficult to understand intuitively, even for professionals, but it just means that on average, drivers wait at a full stop at 32 seconds. In the no build scenario where there would be these minor improvements, and in this table that includes flashing yellow arrow operations, it's just a slight decrease in delay the level service remains the same. In the PM peak hour, it's the opposite. The levels remain the same, but there's a slight increase in delay. The build scenario includes proposed construction of a new traffic signal at the Carolyn intersection. There are two options identified. In both of them, the primary intent of the signalization is to improve safety and comfort of pedestrians using that intersection, and will be fully compatible with the adjacent Caltrain operation. In option one, the proposed signal phasing would be an east-west split phase, similar to what currently operates at California Drive. And in option two, it would use flashing yellow arrow operation for the east-west. It would have slightly lower delays with a flashing yellow arrow, but the same levels of service values as the option one. And here's a broader chart of level service and delay values. The general trend that you'll see is that with comparing the existing values to either option, the level services and the delays are a little bit worse. That's because when you have two intersections close to each other, they need to be coordinated with each other, and that always introduces a slight amount of inefficiency. But nothing drastic happens here. You'll notice in the first line, the existing condition is a C, delay is 32.4. You can almost think of this as a C minus, and under option two, it's a D, but the delay is only 36.3. So that's actually a D plus. It's not that big of a jump from C minus to D plus. That's kind of what we're trying to say.
But before we proceed, it just might be helpful if you could clarify when you talk about the delay, is that delay a measurement of the delay of people moving north southbound or east westbound or both? Whose delay is that measuring exactly?
That's the overall average value.
This is motor vehicle. What about pedestrian delay?
This is reported for motor vehicles only. Pedestrian delay would be a function of the cycle length, because of course it has to cycle through all the different phases to serve the pedestrian in the appropriate time. And so because the cycle length would be longer, pedestrian delay would go up by the same proportion of the longer cycle. It's roughly an added 10 seconds or so for pedestrian delay.
Okay. So this is an average of both east-west and north-south when you.
Yes, it's the overall average for the whole intersection, yes.
Okay. And so for a given driver moving north on California, south on California or Carolyn, they would expect the delays we're seeing here because if they hit the light, and same for east-west.
Yes.
Sorry for belaboring the obvious, but I just want to make sure we're clear what we're measuring here. So
right.
Okay. Thank you. Sorry to interject.
Okay. The next several slides, I'm going to step through the signal phasing. That's the sequence that the lights goes green. It's a term you may not, well, the commissioners probably all know it, but maybe not everyone in the audience. And what this slide shows is on the left side, it shows unchanged operation for California Drive. And each slide is going to show the green arrow indicating which phase would get a green movement. All the others will be red, just like they are now, but I didn't want to fill the whole slide with red, so we're just showing the greens. A traffic signal cycles through all the moves going around the intersection, but at some point along the way, and we're just going to refer to this as the start of the cycle, the left turns on the main street are both green. And you're probably all aware of this if you drive through this intersection. There should be nothing new here, nothing surprising. On the right side of the slide, what we're showing is if a signal gets built at Carolyn Avenue, it'll be coordinated with California Drive. And the reason for that is primarily for rail safety. We're making sure that anybody who's leaving California Drive eastbound is going to be able to go straight through and not get stuck on the tracks. So you're probably all aware that when two left turns are going together, one of them has fewer cars in it and it will time out first. And then you move to the adjacent through. And there's, again, nothing here should be a surprise. And then this left turn will run out of cars eventually and it'll move to both throughs going together. Through all these sequences on the Carolyn Avenue side, we've got that arrow staying green, and anybody who's moving that way from California will be able to go straight through. We then go to the split phase operation on Oak Grove. In this case, we're showing eastbound first. And again, that they can go straight through. Then we reverse everything. At California Avenue, this is what you should all be used to seeing. And on the right side here, we're just showing what would be added if Carolyn is signalized. And then finally, we go to a phase where the north-south traffic on Carolyn gets to go. And when this light is green, you'll have lots of people making this right turn and lots of people making that left turn, and they'll be able to go straight across the tracks without stopping. Okay, option 2 is very similar with one alternative with this flashing yellow arrow that we'll get to in a moment. We start off with the same 2 left turn moves. I'm just switching it up this time. I could have shown southbound again, but I showed northbound. And again, on the east side, we've got Carolyn Avenue, we've got eastbound traffic able to flow off the tracks. Then we go to the throughs just the same as before. And then when we get to the east-west traffic, it changes a little bit because we're going to add protected arrows for California Drive. Carolyn Avenue will go straight into this flashing yellow arrow display. And what that means is they'll see a through signal head for eastbound traffic. They'll see a through signal head on the right side, very similar to what you see at an intersection that has protected movement. But then in the mast arm head, you'll see a signal that has 4 displays in it instead of the usual 3. And one of the middle ones will be a flashing yellow arrow. And what that tells the driver is that they can make a left turn if it's clear. And if there's anyone coming toward them in a car, or if there's anyone crossing in the crosswalk, they should wait. It just means proceed with caution, which is what a flashing yellow normally means. So hopefully that's no great surprise to anybody. Then we move on to the entire east-west display being flashing yellow arrow. Again, the through traffic will be able to go straight through. The left turners at either intersection, if it's clear, they'll be able to go straight through also. And last, we end up again with the north-south at Carolyn Avenue moving. And then as they move across the tracks, they'll either have the green to go straight through or right, and a flashing yellow arrow to be turned left, and nobody should get stuck on the tracks. Talk briefly about rail safety as it relates to the, yes.
Can I ask can I ask a very quick question before we move on?
Yeah.
So I understand the flashing yellow light being needed on California Drive and Oak Grove because sometimes it obviously would be green and sometimes it's not. But what is the point of having a flashing yellow light on Oak Grove and Carolyn Ave? You know, doesn't green always mean turn left with caution? Is it just a sort of an extra be aware of pedestrian kind of thing? Like, couldn't you just not have it? I'm just trying to understand.
You could. There's one really compelling reason to have it, and I'll get to that in just a moment. And then there's one just kind of nice reason to have it. Let me go back to that slide. We have a left turn only lane here to, moving away from the tracks. The compelling reason to have it is that when we do what's called rail preempt, we want that to be a green arrow, which it will be when the train is approaching, and they'll have a green arrow. So everybody will know if you're going straight through or left, you have a green, you can go and get off the tracks. That's the compelling reason to design it this way. The kind of the optional reason is just for normal operations with no train coming, that the left turn volume is heavy enough that you might want to have the flashing yellow arrow. Okay, can I move on now? Any other questions?
Thank you very much. That totally makes sense.
Okay. The rail safety slide is directly related to what you just said. It was a perfect segue. Thank you very much. So when a train is coming in either direction towards the crossing, there are detectors in the track that detect the train's approach. There's, I don't know if you're a geek like me and you're really familiar with this area, you'll know that there's a little shack right over here. It looks like a tin shed. It's called the rail bungalow or the rail communications cabinet. That detection signal comes into this cabinet. From this cabinet, it goes into an underground conduit. It goes down the street like this and across this way and over to the signal controller for California Drive. And it notifies the signal controller that there's a train coming. When that train is detected, these lights go green to clear the track. Everything else turns red pretty much immediately. And what that ensures is that anybody who might have been stopped on the track will have a chance to get off the track. And at that point, the bells will start flashing, the gates will start coming down. Anyone else headed this way will stop for the gates. And then there'll be a few seconds remaining for the green to get everyone just cleared safely off the tracks. If a signal is built at Carolyn Avenue, the exact same thing will happen, but in mirror image. Everything will go red when the train is detected, and then there will be a green light displayed to the eastbound, to the left turn and the through. And that's why we did the signalization that way. Thanks for that question. We're adding one more thing here, and that's a no turn on red for the right turners. So that would be northbound California, which does not have a signal. That's a free right turn. And then it would be southbound Carolyn, which would continue to be controlled by the traffic control device. But that's just a little extra added safety to be sure that nobody is able to make a right turn and try to gun it to get across the tracks before the train comes. So a little bit of added rail safety. I'm going to go into now a little bit more about what is a flashing yellow arrow. I don't believe Burlingame has any flashing yellow arrow signals yet, so we'll spend just a minute on this. So everybody's familiar with the regular traffic signal head, a red, yellow, green ball, 12-inch ball. Everybody knows what the green means. The flashing yellow arrowhead has an added fourth display on it. And the sequence that you see is quite familiar. If you think about starting in the red, the next thing you would see would be a green, a steady green, just a regular steady green. After that, it would be a steady yellow, and then it gets different. You have a brief red, 1 second usually, and then you go to flashing yellow arrow. That flashing yellow arrow would continue to flash for as long as the green ball lasts. And when the green ball lasts and this head goes to yellow, this flashing yellow would stop, and then it would go to solid yellow again, and this would go red, and then that would go red. So that's a flashing yellow arrow. I have a video for you next. There's quite a few videos on the web explaining flashing yellow arrow. This happens to be the one that I like the best. So this is from City of Santa Rosa, who happened to have installed one of the first flashing yellow arrow operations in the Bay Area. And this is a film they made about 12 years ago when they put that in. Can everyone hear that voice? No. I think I need to unshare my screen. I'm sorry about this. I will start it again immediately though, and I'll do what I forgot to do, which was to click this little button. And hopefully you can see the start of the video again. Okay, this time you should be able to hear the sound.
I'm Rob Sprinkle, traffic engineer for the City of Santa Rosa, here today to talk to you about a new type of traffic signal.
Can you hear him this time?
We can hear it, but we can't see it.
You can hear it, but you can't see it.
Oh, no.
It looks like it's just your screen without the video part. So maybe.
I'm sorry about this. Let me just try to start it one more time and maybe that'll work. Okay. Share screen, share sound. And I want that screen. Okay.
Have you ever seen a flashing yellow arrow on a traffic light?
Okay, good.
I'm Rob Sprinkle, traffic engineer for the City of Santa Rosa, here today to talk to you about a new type of traffic signal. Beginning in 2013, flashing yellow left turn signals will be installed in some of the intersections in Santa Rosa. Studies show that drivers better understand the need to yield to oncoming traffic with a new flashing yellow arrow signal. These new flashing yellow arrow signals give drivers more chances to make left turns, but more importantly, they stress the need to use caution when turning left. Some drivers may be confused when they see a flashing yellow arrow because they're not exactly sure what to do. Let's run through how these signals operate. The green arrow means you have the right of way to make a left turn. All incoming traffic and pedestrians are stopped. The solid yellow arrow is a warning telling you the light is about to turn red. The red arrow means stop and wait. Now for the new part, a flashing yellow arrow. The flashing yellow arrow means you can make a left turn if there's a safe gap from oncoming traffic. Check for oncoming bicycles and pedestrians attempting to cross the intersection. Always yield to the pedestrians, as they have the right of way. If you don't see a gap in traffic, don't take a chance. Just wait until the next green arrow appears. The City of Santa Rosa will be evaluating this new technology at locations throughout the city. It will be up to all of us to make sure we use them safely.
Okay, I know a lot of people like to see these themselves. The closest one that we found to you was in City of Belmont. It was installed about 2 years ago. Right across in the bay in San Leandro, there's another one that was installed about a year ago. San Francisco, Santa Clara, Santa Rosa, the 9th Street in Dutton was the intersection that you just saw in that film. Theirs was quite a while ago. W-Trans has designed all the signals in the next 3 lines, 12 in Petaluma in 2017, 4 in Windsor, which is a little town up near Santa Rosa in 2018, and 10 locations in Rohnert Park, which is another North Bay town that was installed just this last summer. When we design these, when the time comes to turn them on, we recommend to every local agency that they have a police officer present for the first few hours, just in case drivers are confused and the officer needs to jump out and direct traffic and help things work smoothly. These are 26 intersections that we've designed in the last few years. Never once has the officer had to get out of his car. Never once. The same is true for the first one that went in Santa Rosa as well. It may be a little bit confusing to you right now, but when you're in your car looking at this signal head, it's remarkably easy to understand what the displays mean. So that's been our history with it. I think you'll have to admit 26 intersections, that's a pretty good history. And we have a lot of confidence in these lights and how they work and how easy it is to really understand them and drive safely through them. Schedule. So we're here tonight in February. We've applied for permits from the Joint Powers Board and Caltrain and from PG&E for the electrical service, for the electrical power for the new proposed signal. We hope to have those processes done next month. That would allow us to finish final design in April, to advertise for bids in June, et cetera. Signal turn on next spring. And that's assuming, of course, that the commission and council approve of this concept. And that's the end of the presentation. Happy to take questions.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Fitzsimons. I think we're going to have a bunch of questions. I'd like to lead, I know I'm going to go out of order here, but I'd like to lead with one question because I think it'll just help everybody. Can you just go back to your presentation of the contrast between what's happening when it's a phased signal and when it's a flashing yellow? So just that one step, can you just show us side by side, like at this point in option 1, this is what's happening. In this point in option 2, we're going to see these yellow signals.
I think have them side by side. They're in different slides.
Even if you could just jump between one and the other quickly.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I have to. I'll just flip up quickly. This is the flashing yellow arrow sequence, and what's different here is that rather than just having eastbound go and then westbound go, it looks more like a normal, well, it looks more like a signal phase sequence where you have a protected left turn, a few seconds of protected left turn. So they get the left turn green arrows, they go to something that's a mix with a green ball and the flashing yellow arrow. And then both would display that. Back in the existing operation, we have the split phase at both intersections. And the split phase is where eastbound goes, everybody else is seeing a red, especially westbound. And then the next movement would be westbound only. That's the split phase option. The key thing here with the railroad track and rail safety is that we have those grouped together where if you want to keep this split phase going as it is now, we would do the same thing over at Carolyn. But anybody who's approaching the tracks would be able to get through. The signal would be set up here actually so that this one would actually lag a couple seconds behind that one. When this goes red, that one would continue green for a few seconds, again, just to clear everybody off the tracks for safe operations. That's the difference. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that does, and that's very helpful. I'll return this to the sort of the normal order of commissioner questions. We're also gonna have public comments, but what I'd like to do is get some quick commissioner questions up first, then I'll go to public comments. I'm actually gonna give commissioners a second bite of the apple because this is, at least from my perspective, this is hard, and I want to give everyone kind of an ample chance to ask the questions they have, and then come back to it. Not try and do it one bite. So Commissioner Lee, I believe you were raising your hand there and wanted to jump in.
Yes, thank you very much, Chairman. I have a number of questions and comments. First question is, have we looked at the Twitter statistics for this intersection, both of them, both California and Carolan? Could you tell me what the motor vehicle collision rate is? How many cars are getting hit by Caltrans? How many pedestrian hits have occurred and bicycle hits have occurred? Why are we even doing this? What's wrong?
I'll let Andy take that over. We did look at SWITRs. There have been, in the last 10 years, 3 reported incidents with pedestrians getting injured. And Andy has more data on the vehicles.
Sure, and through our police department, so over the past 5 years at Carolan and Oak Grove, there have been, I have to count up, I think about at least 7 collisions there, and those were the right-of-way yielding type and folks entering the intersection, making a left turn. So part of this is to kind of standardize those operations, allow folks when they see a yellow, or I'm sorry, a green arrow, be able to make the turn and not worry about other folks. And then again, the flashing yellow arrow is just, it's a reminder that you need to yield. You're able to do that maneuver now at many intersections where we have a green ball, but the yellow just further emphasizes that you're yielding. When you're making that left turn, you're yielding right away to a through movement.
So
And
there have been 7 motor vehicle collisions in 10 years?
I will count up that and get you that, but it's in that range.
Okay, so that was my first comment. Second, as you know, this is in front of a high school with almost 2,000 students. And I have yet to have heard one comment other than it's good for pedestrian safety, but I haven't seen pedestrians in here. If I'm looking at it, I'm seeing at least a 75-second delay for pedestrians to be able to cross the street. By the time you push the button, maybe you get there and it's at the end of the cycle, you have to wait and wait, then you wait for all the turns. And I don't like a 75-second delay when I could just now cross with a stop sign. So I think it's a very big disregard of pedestrian safety, and the flashing yellow is even more disregarding of pedestrian safety than a controlled green. I'm assuming that the pedestrians have a walk signal up there when there's a flashing yellow. Well, that's called run for your life and good luck. So I feel like this is a complete disregard for pedestrians. Secondly, the other thing is in our brand new pedestrian bicycle plan, this intersection, both of them fall within half a mile, which we considered is a transit pedestrian zone. And so in this zone, because it's within a quarter mile of the Caltrain station and downtown shopping district, in this zone, pedestrians and bikes need to be given equal balance and all as motor vehicles. And all I'm saying is let's move these motor vehicles as fast as possible. Ignore the fact that we're in front of a school. Ignore the fact that 3 pedestrian hits in 10 years does not make our top 10 list of pedestrian collision zones. So right now for PEDs and for those high schoolers, this intersection, because of the confusion of it, the weirdness of it, it works. And no one's getting killed. I didn't hear that there was a death of any of those motor vehicles who did or didn't yield the right of way. They're surrounded by metal and they have airbags. So if they're getting hit, it's their own fault. It's the humans that you got to worry about. And we've got 2,000 of them going to that school every day. So anyway, the flashing yellow arrow I find very detrimental to pedestrians. And then the 75-second delay that can occur, or if the train tracks come down, the delay is even longer for pedestrians, because if it's like our other intersections, pedestrians are put at the bottom of the barrel as far as being able to cross when they push that button. And I don't see how that works with the 15-year-olds, being delayed. So I don't see why we need to fix this intersection. It doesn't appear to be broken. And my last comment is that we have this intersection at California Drive is going to be reviewed by a consultant for the new bicycle lane that's been given a grant. And I don't see why we're even discussing this until that goes through. Seems like we're putting the cart before the horse for me. Thank you.
Yeah, I can talk a bit about pedestrian safety. I'll just share my screen one more time. When you think about
access and safety, it's not just safety, it's access, ease of access and safety.
Right. When you talk about a typical side street at a traffic signal, and you have a green ball for everything altogether. If you think about a southbound left turn driver, right now what they would see would be a green ball. In a flashing arrow phase, they would see the green ball, but right next to it, they would see a flashing yellow arrow. And if you think about the driver's perception and the safety of pedestrians that are crossing that crosswalk, in this case, we're talking about the southbound left and this one here, having the flashing yellow added to that is giving the driver a caution that they don't get with just a regular green ball. And I'd ask you to consider for a minute that when you're crossing a street like this and you're crossing in this crosswalk, you probably hesitate for a moment before stepping in just to be sure nobody's driving right at you, but you don't feel in fear for your life every time you cross in that crosswalk. That won't change. And what's happened with, as these signals have been installed, these types of signals, has been that having the driver see that extra flashing yellow arrow doesn't do any harm to pedestrians at all. So the comparison for pedestrian safety, as you mentioned earlier, if it's more like California Drive where the left turners can only go on the arrow, yes, that is the safest operation right there. But the point I want to try to make is that when you have this, everybody goes with one green ball, pedestrians aren't necessarily in danger, and what we're doing with the flashing yellow arrow wouldn't add to that. As far as pedestrian circulation goes from the high school, when they're crossing this way, they're going obviously to the neighborhoods on the other side, on the west side of the tracks. There's also a bus line with a big bus stop here that a lot of the kids walk to the bus stops on California Drive. They would come up to this corner. They'd have the option of crossing west or crossing north. If they're like me and a lot of smart high school kids, they'll push both buttons and they'll go with whichever one takes them there first. So the full 75-second delay may not be experienced by others. I thank you for that comment though, because I agree, 75 seconds is a long time to have to wait. Whether it's worth it or not is up to public discussion and consensus. That's all I can say. So thank you very much.
I understand you correctly that you said for pedestrians, a left turn arrow is safer than a flashing yellow. Did I hear that correctly?
What I said was that it's no different really. It may be safer to have the flashing yellow arrow because any driver that's going to make a left turn towards you, if you're a pedestrian in a crosswalk, that's facing a green ball compared to facing a green ball plus a flashing yellow arrow, they see that yellow caution light flashing at them. And hopefully that'll remind them to look and drive safely.
What about a green left turn arrow versus a yellow flashing arrow? It seems to me that the pedestrian would have a do not walk symbol then. Exactly. If there's a green arrow, therefore it's safer for pedestrians.
What I said a minute ago was that you're right. That is the safest operation for pedestrians. To have every possible conflicting move be a red and they just get their green. Yeah.
So for pedestrians near a school zone, the left turn arrow is the safer than a flashing yellow. Is that correct?
A left turn arrow is safer. Yes, I think that's true. Yes.
Okay. And then over here at Carol Ann and Oak Grove, we don't really have an issue with pedestrian collisions. It's not in our top 10 collision hits. So I hate to change it because it seems to be working for the kids. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, Commissioner Lee. Commissioner Israelit, did you have any? And again, I think if commissioners can hold their comments here to questions, I'm gonna come back to people for comments. So if you could stick to questions, and then we're gonna go to the public, and then we'll have you'll get another bite of the apple. So, Commissioner Israelit.
Well, I just want to address Commissioner Lee's concerns quickly before I ask my question, because I was the one who brought this intersection to, I was one of the ones who really strongly felt that there's something needed to be done at this intersection, and it was prior to your time here. I spent 7 years driving 2 students to and from that intersection every morning. And it is not safe. I mean, there near misses happen all the time. And we talked about working on this because we have distracted students, distracted drivers, we have bikes, and we have new drivers. So we did not want to leave this intersection the same, even if it didn't make the top 10 list as far as car accidents or pedestrian accidents, because there are so many near misses. And that's one of the reasons that we went to work on this. One quick comment is, I have to agree, when I heard the flashing yellow light, flashing yellow arrow, I was like, oh no, we can't add any more complexity to this. And I have watched the video for the flashing crossing, pedestrian crossing on El Camino in Millbrae, those videos multiple times, and I still get confused when they go off. But I have to say, with your video, it is, I felt that it was totally intuitive. It immediately put my concerns to rest as far as how are people going to address this when they've never seen this kind of sign before. My concern is that when you have, during COVID and during the school being shut down, when you had the time to observe this intersection, the 2 main reasons we want to sort of address this intersection, one is for pedestrian safety, and that's actually the paramount thing. And then the second thing was because when you exit the high school from dropping off your kids, you are forced to turn right and proceed northbound on Carolan, and then you get to that stop sign. And so parents, there might be only 10 cars in front of you, but it literally could take 20 to 25 minutes to get through that stop sign. And you hadn't really had a chance to observe that during morning drop-offs. It's worse than afternoon pickups because the staggered time of picking up. So I just wanted to know, would this proposal that you've come up with be adaptable to if we need to change that at a certain time in the morning so that more cars could flow through that? How would that work so they don't stack up like they have been?
Yeah, any traffic signal you can set the parameters that govern its timing to favor a move that's really heavy in the morning. And near schools like this, it's very, very common to have a pretty long green for northbound Carolan in the morning to clear that traffic out. Yeah, and I've been directly involved with this project now all throughout COVID. And so I've been to the site many times, but never have seen the school with students. I have seen it before. I live somewhat close by, but not directly as part of this project, so I can't comment on that.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much, and that's good to hear.
Through the chair, just further on Mr. Fitzsimon's comments. Obviously in the morning, the heavier movements out of the school. In the evening, it's the reverse. It's the southbound Carolan. And there's different timing plans for morning and afternoon that we can do during those peak periods, so to address it.
Vice Chair Martos, you're up next for any questions you might have at this point.
Sure. Mr. Fitzsimons and Mr. Wong, I want to look at this as an engineer. And this is a very complicated intersection. There's a lot of scenarios and a lot of variables that can change. And I'm curious, when you came up with this implementation and compared it against a split phasing signaling, did you run simulations? And if so, did you run Monte Carlo simulations to look at the risk, all the different scenarios? I mean, this is a lot for a person to envision and to sort out in their mind, and that's why we have computers do this stuff. I'm curious about the statistics of the safety, and along with what my other commissioners said, you know, is it significantly better than the scenario right now, the way the intersections arranged to go with the split phasing or to go with a flashing yellow arrow? And do we have do we have statistics and computer models that will confirm that?
Right. The modeling that we did compared these two alternatives, and the comparison was based upon the measures that you saw, the intersection delay and level of service, and also on the cycle length, which is directly related to delay and level service. The split phase needs a longer cycle length because you're taking eastbound and westbound split apart from each other, which means they both need their full allotment of time. So for example, at Carolyn, you have the crosswalk on the north leg, which runs with westbound traffic. You have the crosswalk on the south leg, which runs with eastbound traffic. They both have to time out independently, which just requires a longer cycle. The flashing yellow arrow runs those two crosswalks mostly concurrently, not exactly, but mostly concurrently. So that allows for the movements to transpire over a shorter duration, and then cycle length can stay shorter. And the shorter cycle length was what tipped the scales in favor of this flashing yellow arrow operation. It was a fairly important distinction between the two options. We didn't do a Monte Carlo for safety. I don't actually know of a model that really does that. You know, what you can say about safety is, well, I'll speak from the perspective of a parent. My daughter's 24 now, but when she was in elementary and high school, I did crossing guard duty at her school. There's a very big difference between the collision statistics and how people feel about the safety of the crossing. In this intersection, for example, we heard on the one hand, there aren't really that many statistics. It's not on the top 10 list. These are very true and valid points. I don't want to dispute them. And we heard on the other hand from how a parent feels when they're driving through or when they're watching their kids walk through. So they're both important things to consider. As an engineer, I shouldn't say that to you, but as a dad, I can say that certainly, and I totally get it. I would feel safer with it signalized. I get that the delays are a big factor and they can be really annoying also. But what I like about this intersection is that a lot of times when you are leaving the high school, especially the kids that we know may be less likely to wait for the light, they'll have the chance to push both directions and go with the one that comes up first. So there's nothing in detail that I can tell you here. There's nothing coming out of a computer that I can give you an absolute answer tonight, or frankly, that I can give you an absolute answer from. All I can tell you is my gut reaction from both perspectives is the signal is going to work pretty well. It will take some adjustment. It'll take getting used to, as all new signals do, but I think it's a good option. Do you want to come back at me with more clarification questions?
Well, okay, and that's fair. That's fair. But then I also had a follow-on question. So you've installed flashing yellow arrows in 26 intersections, and what has been the measure of effectiveness, or how effective have those been at those intersections? Any regrets, any remorse, 100% in favor that it's been an improvement? What are those statistics like? Now you've got real data you can measure.
Yeah, Petaluma has done a follow-up study. They have the option to reverse the flashing yellow arrow, to take it out. It's relatively easy to do if you find out you need to. They have not had to do that at any of the intersections that were put in. For Windsor, I have a coworker who's actually the traffic engineer for town of Windsor. She's a contractor to them. She has not had complaints from the community coming in because of those intersections. The ones we did in Rohnert Park are too soon to tell. But Petaluma did follow up. They compared collision rates with the older protected arrows in a lot of cases, or permissive in some cases, to the flashing yellow arrow. And they found really no significant change. Nothing alarmed them. Nothing made them go to the papers and decry how brilliant they are either. But basically, it was kind of a moot point. The advantage you get from flashing yellow arrow is that if you're waiting to make a left turn, if you miss the green, you have to wait a long time. if you have flashing yellow arrow and you miss the green, you still have another 20 or 30 seconds when you can make your left turn like you would if it was just a green ball, a permissive left turn. You have that chance. So you actually have one specific movement that has less delay. And then because the cycle length can typically be shorter, everybody experiences a little bit less delay. So from the pedestrian standpoint, there is an issue Commissioner Lee brought up very nicely, that if you just push one of the buttons and wait, it's not like it is now with the stop sign where you can go as soon as you can see that people are going to stop and wait for you. You do have to wait. But if you push both those buttons, which I think most of the kids will likely do, because let's face it, the kids at Burlingame High are pretty smart. They'll be able to relatively quickly get a walk phase and be able to start moving.
All right, thank you, Mr. Fitzsimmons.
Okay, thank you, Vice Chair Martos, for those questions. I have just a couple questions, and then we'll take public comment, and I'll give commissioners another chance. And so I'm strongly tempted to give my opinion, but I'm the one who said we're going to keep this to questions, so I'm going to just lead with these. In looking at the presentation for peak hours of service and delays, one thing I noticed was that the delays for option 2 are uniformly less, except in the case of Oak Grove and Carolyn, where option 2, actually the delays are 13 seconds longer. So maybe could you just briefly explain why that is, why they're less in every sense, but then for Oak Grove, Carolyn, they're actually there's an additional delay for peak hours of service in option 2.
If you remember the sequence of slides that I went through showing you the movements, it holds at Carolyn, it holds that eastbound green for a fairly large proportion of the cycle, because it's allowing all the California Drive traffic that's going eastbound to get through on a green and not be stopped where they might be at risk of being stopped on the track. That means that the amount of cycle left over for north-south on Carolyn is fairly short. So in the PM peak, when that north-south movement is high, it does result in a longer delay for the north and southbound traffic. And that delay gets long enough that it kind of outweighs the overall average, and it leads it to the step up in level of service, or the step down in level of service, and the added delay that you're talking about. Does that make sense?
I think so.
Yeah.
I think so. So
what you would do in real life is you would keep tweaking the timing until it was more acceptable for Carolyn traffic, and that would improve the overall delay. But for the study, we didn't do that.
It comes at the expense of people moving north and southbound on Carolyn and not people going east. Okay.
Yeah. And that's because rail safety overrides pretty much everything, and the operation has to always think about rail safety.
Got it. And then the second question, I think maybe this has really been answered, but you're going to design these lights so that given the traffic at a given moment, the east-west bound traffic may get privileged and have longer periods of moving through the signal than the northbound, southbound traffic, or,
And that's true at Carolyn. Yeah.
Yeah. I could, by the way, I literally picked up my kid from our pool like an hour before this meeting. So I have about 7 years of it ahead of me. So I can speak from a little bit of experience with a lot ahead of me. And I was like, oh, this eastbound, westbound thing is gonna be tough. I would say to you, while I don't know that we're gonna get back to high school for a while, practices have commenced in the afternoon. So if you did wanna get there when there's an example of some heavy traffic, it's probably just a taste, but you show up in the afternoons and there can be traffic there right now because there's a lot of kids getting dropped off for baseball and swimming. And then I had a note here. Well, I can't decipher my own notes. So those were my two big questions. And what I'll do is I'll go to public comment, and then, as I said to the commissioners, we'll come back around and share our thoughts to the extent we haven't already. And I definitely have some thoughts. So with that, why don't we go to public comment? I see Mr. Velasco, you've had your hand raised for a while. I want to thank you for your patience. Please go ahead with your thoughts.
Hi, good evening, commissioners. Thank you, Mr. Fitzsimmons, for describing what is really a really challenging set of intersections. I wanted to, because I do cross there almost on an everyday basis when I do my walks, and I wanted to go back to what you had said, like the safest form for a pedestrian to cross is when they have a walk signal and the left turning traffic has a red arrow. I agree with you. And that is what's out there now at Oak Grove in California. When you walk across, the left turners have a red arrow. There is no conflict. Like, I would be perfectly happy to have my middle schooler, high schooler make that crossing at any time because of that. If the city implements the flashing yellow arrow, then you are creating a conflict that does not now exist, because then you would have a walk indication with a flashing arrow. That is difficult for drivers to address, because what drivers are going to do is they will yield to the oncoming traffic, look for a gap, and as soon as they find the gap, they will make the left turn. They will not notice a pedestrian, especially in the dark. Especially if one of those parties, either the pedestrian or the driver, is a BHS person, so it's either a new driver or a pedestrian, that is problematic. And the other thing with this is that if you're a driver making a left turn coming from BHS across the tracks and you're trying to make the left turn and you have a flashing yellow arrow and there are two cars behind you stuck on the tracks, you are going to get a lot of pressure as a driver to make that left turn and make it prematurely, like make a left turn even though it is not safe. So from a purely pedestrian standpoint, that Oak Grove and California intersection will be made much worse for pedestrians if you put in the flashing yellow arrow. I do have some experience with the flashing yellow arrow. You mentioned Masonic and Oak. I talked to the engineer who put that in. That is an experiment that the city is trying. In that case, at Oak and Masonic, there is no oncoming traffic for the left turners to look at. That flashing yellow arrow is only for pedestrians. So in that, it's a different dynamic. So I don't know how much experience there is to go from a signal that has red, yellow, green arrow going to a flashing yellow arrow. That seems more risk-taking. Mostly, I think it goes the other way. Like you would go flashing yellow arrow first as a trial, and if that doesn't work, you go into the green or red, yellow arrow. You're nodding, so I think you agree.
The ones we did in the North Bay were mostly taking out a protected left and putting in flashing yellow arrow.
Understand. It's a trade-off between efficiency and pedestrian safety, in my view. The thing that I was expecting you to sort of go after or explain to the commissioners is the queuing, because my take is that when you put in this signal timing, the queuing coming from BHS will go all the way back to the swimming pool. We'll go all the way back to like the front of BHS, to the baseball diamonds, and then going all the way back to Carolyn. If there was a table that shows how much queuing there is, I think it would really demonstrate to the commission what the impacts are, and they could make a decision. Commissioner Mardos had said like a simulation, I think a video simulation using Synchro. It would be pretty easy to show the commission, hey, this is what's going to happen if you do this. You can have these people like backups, and then people are going to have to find shortcuts to get around the backups. So I just want to make sure that people's eyes are open when they make a decision on this pretty difficult and tough situation. To Commissioner Israelit's concern, it is true that it is kind of unpredictable the way people treat that intersection, both as a ped or as a driver. But because of that complication, people pay attention, and they actually treat the intersection with a higher level of care and thought, as if it were compared to another intersection. So just to close it off, that short crosswalk, if you want to go back to your phasing diagram, if a BHS student is coming from Oak Grove Market to cross to the BHS track, that really short crossing there, based on the phasing diagram that you have, that person has to wait, like Ms. Lee said, over a minute to make that crossing. So that's not coming from BHS to the barbershop. It's coming from the Oak Grove Market or / barbershop going to BHS. That person has to wait over 60 seconds, a minute more to make that crossing. And I don't think kids are going to wait that long to be able to cross. They'll just cross. From a driver perspective, if you're coming from BHS going northbound on Carolyn, right now what you do is you come to the stop sign, look left, look right, and you go. When you put in this signal with the phasing diagram that you have, that driver is going to wait also 60 seconds, 73 seconds, 75 seconds before they are able to go in their time in the cycle. I don't think those drivers are going to wait 60 to 70 when they don't see anybody else coming. So that to me is the concern, is the queuing, like people waiting, and then people testing, and the signal testing people's compliance with such a signal.
May I, thank you, Mr. Velasco.
Yeah, thank you.
May I just interject quickly before you answer? I'm a little confused why we're saying it would take 70 to 75 seconds to cross one side of the street, right? I mean, I don't see a 75-second delay on any of these charts. Is that?
If you, just for a minute, I'll go through this sequence again. If you think about being someone on northbound Carolyn waiting to go, and we start at this start point and then we go through, Carolyn, that movement on Carolyn would see a red all the way through until the very last sequence. So that seconds of delay is, depending on the cycle length, the north-south on Carolyn might get the last 20 seconds of the cycle, but they would have to wait through the entire cycle to get that. And there may be times, especially when California Drive is green, and there will be right turners trickling through, where if you're sitting there waiting, you'll have those right turners going in front of you every few seconds, but it may feel like, gee, I could go in one of these gaps. So I think that's what Mr. Velasco is talking about. And that's something that comes with the close spacing between these signals. They have to be coordinated that way. And it's especially true because of the tracks and the way the tracks are there, that we have to stay focused on rail safety with the operation of the signal. But the one thing I want to respond to is the comment that you'll be waiting 75 seconds when nobody is moving. I think when you're there and nobody's moving, the light will cycle to you much more quickly than 75 seconds. It won't be a 75-second wait 24 hours a day. That cycle length was calculated for peak hour conditions. I want to thank Mr. Velasco also, because he emailed Andy yesterday, I think it was. So we had a little bit of chance to look into the queuing issue. We have a problem with that because we can't compare the queuing coming out of the model to actual existing conditions, because they aren't normal yet, obviously, because of COVID. And we had another problem because the synchro model actually doesn't do a good job with intersections that have 3 out of 4 legs with stop signs on them. So we weren't able to come up with anything in time with this meeting, but we're still trying to work on that. I do have the chance before our next presentation to circle back with my colleagues in Petaluma and find out if they had any intersections that are near schools, so I can talk about specifically what their experience has been and if they've had any complaints from the students or the parents near the schools. So I'll commit to doing that before we're before you again.
That's great. I don't see any other members of the public in the attendees column here. Mr. Velasco, I really thank you for your engagement on this. I think it was very helpful. If I don't have any other members of the public, I'm going to give each commissioner just briefly, if you've already feel like you've said your piece, a couple minutes to just circle back and share your view. And then I think we might, well, actually, before I do that, Mr. Wong, is this coming back to us a second time? Do we need to act tonight, or do we actually get to wait for another bite at the apple for a second presentation?
Through the chair, I'll get back with Ms. Mai. I know we had budgeted this, and we had originally talked about taking this with the feedback we get here to the city council, but I'll see what abilities we have, what's in the budget to maybe come back to this group before we go to city council. So let me take a look at that. It was based on tonight's feedback.
And I'll just share, I got a little bit of direction that, we should really comb this very carefully before it goes to council. I'm not afraid to opine tonight, and I've made the mistake of saying, oh, I really would like a second bite, and I just don't get it. So I say that as a counsel to my fellow commissioners. We may need to say something tonight, even if we would love to hear more, which I would too, because sometimes you think you'd like to hear more and you don't get to say more. You don't get that chance. So you got to speak up when you can. So sorry for the inside baseball. So let me give each commissioner another shot at this, and then maybe we can talk about how we want to proceed. Commissioner Lee.
Thank you very much. Yes, as we have heard, the flashing yellow is the least safe for pedestrians. And in front of a school, I think we need to absolutely prioritize the safety of the pedestrians. And it seems to me that this intersection is being rushed through by city and staff, perhaps because I think this intersection is slated to carry a lot of the motor vehicle traffic that would in the future be bypassing the Broadway overpass construction. And so this intersection, they're trying to bring all the motor vehicles through here, is my guess. So I feel we're being rushed. Secondly, it was the first night that BPAC was able to look at this intersection, because it is by a school and downtown and in our shopping transit zone. I just feel we should let BPAC have a look at this and comments on this also. I strongly feel we need to prioritize the pedestrians in this zone and not the 20-second delay of motor vehicles. I had a question about, let's say you're a pedestrian and you're going east-west, so therefore you have to cross both Caroline and California. If you push the button in front after you get out of the football game at BHS and you start to cross westbound, then you walk across the tracks, do you have to push the button again? So that's another 75-second delay. So pedestrians aren't considered part of that flow to get across, that you can get across in one light. So this is a huge delay for pedestrians, which brings anxious behavior, let's just say. And I did like the comment that Benito Velasco mentioned, that why create a conflict that doesn't exist? So to switch from controlled left turn lights to a flashing yellow, no matter how many vehicles we move per hour more, all three of them or whatever, to have a conflict with pedestrians that doesn't exist now, and to risk any of our students. I also have had 2 students go to BHS and do drive that intersection a lot. But it feels like we're being rushed. BPAC needs to look at it. I am not fond of anything that harms pedestrians near a school. And this is not a big collision intersection, no matter how uncomfortable you feel and how much crazy dashing across over by the Oak Grove Market or after football games or whatever. But people are not getting hit, and humans are not getting hit. So I'd like to wait until we also get the bike plan the grant going and to see what is the bike plan for the Oak Grove bike lane, Oak Grove and California bike lane. So we should get that decided before we start changing the intersection in other ways. So I just feel like we're being rushed and not enough care is going to pedestrians. Thank you.
Okay, Commissioner Israelet.
Chair Wetton, I'm not to be like adult, but I'm not 100% sure what you meant when you said, were you implying that we needed to come up with a definitive opinion this evening because we might not get another chance to revisit this?
Yes.
Before it goes before council?
Yes. So just having lived this enough times, we can look at this and say, you know, I don't know, it's not enough information. Hey guys, can you, oh, I'm sorry, my video's off. I'm sorry, I think I might accidentally hit it. You know, can you guys come back, give us this, that, the other thing? And we can do that, but I think if we do that, we run the risk of it getting to council anyway and us not having spoken. And remember, our windows are very narrow to speak our mind. So this is always kind of a pain point. Like you want more and you want them to come back with more and you can ask, but then if you don't say anything, then you may not get the chance to actually say what you think based on what you've presented so far. And people can disagree. You know, Commissioner Martos has only been on this a year less than me. So he's got, you know, the same level of experience and he may have a same or different perspective. I'll let him weigh in when we get to his turn, but that's my procedural guidance as chair, which is I think we can say we want more information. We can suggest here that more information come back to us. But I would suggest we better say something that the council reads because we may just pass on.
Okay. Okay. Well, I hear what you're saying, but this is one of the most complicated double intersections, and we've asked for, you know, improvement to be made and a signal to be examined, and this is really the first time we've gotten to see this at all. So it's a lot to digest just in one evening, and I don't feel that we can do it justice that quickly. I mean, I would like to get more information as far as I would like to see what the delay would be for a pedestrian to cross in several different scenarios. I don't think that, you know, as far as what Commissioner Lee was saying, you know, crossing from like the football game all the way to the other side of California. I mean, right now you still have to wait twice. You have to wait in the stop sign and make sure, you know, nobody's coming and safe to go. And then you have to wait to cross California as well. So, you know, I don't feel as strongly that it has to be, you know, one continuous throughway that direction, but I would like to get a better idea and make sure that when we institute this, we are not having unintended consequences like we've had with some other developments that we worked on. So I want to make sure that we're not causing a big delay of cars leaving the high school and also with pedestrians. And couldn't we revisit this next month? I mean, and then weigh in. Is there a plan for City Council to need to make a decision on this before our next meeting?
Through the chair, there isn't. I mean, other than trying to adhere to some construction schedule, but we only have funds right now to complete the design. We don't have funds for construction yet. We have to go to council. So there is time, and we will re-examine the budget and see if we can, and we'll talk to our bosses about see if we can do potentially. And we'll look at the budget and then try to figure it out to see if we'll come back to you guys.
So when you talk about the budget, Mr. Wong, it's something that after 10 years on this commission, I'm only now appreciating. You mean that for us to have a private consultant present on these issues is not free. If we want 2 meetings with the consultant, that's twice as much as 1 meeting. It's not like when we ask you for more questions and ask you to come back, which is your scarce, valuable time. But the city funds don't change.
No, and that's what we'll look at. If you want, we can get down there. Plus, the simulation we're not able to run.
Right.
We don't have the software. So if we want some of that, and some of that wasn't part of the scope, but we will talk to our superiors and W-Trans to see what we can do. And maybe we'll just have to look at what milestones are left.
Okay, because I do think that we need to look, I don't think we need to slow things down that much, but I do think that, we've had a really good discussion tonight about different points. And I think we need to gather a little bit more data and a little bit of simulation, or, look at the actual delays for pedestrians before we say for sure we want option number 1 or option number 2, so it's not like, I want to ruminate over and over again about this, but I do think some good valid points have been raised tonight, and we need answers for that to those before we move forward and make a final decision for something this big.
Well, there's a third option, Commissioner Israel, if I might interject, which is no build.
I personally don't like that option, and I have thought about that, but so I'm definitely leaning toward one of the 2 build options.
Well, I'll let everybody get their opinion out, but how we frame what we want to say tonight could, we could figure that out, which is we may have a partial.
We could make a motion. Yeah, we could make a motion that we want to, we're very interested and want to move forward with looking at this, but before, that kind of thing. Is that what you mean?
Yeah, I mean,
okay.
In my experience, again, well, I'll come back to it in my comments. Vice Chair Martos, do you want to weigh in?
Sure. Thank you, Chair Wetton. I am not convinced that the flashing yellow arrow is an improvement. I do, from everything I've heard, I think it is it's going to be more of a risk for pedestrians than what we have right now. The biggest issue that I've seen in that intersection is queuing going westbound on Oak Grove. And I haven't heard a whole lot of discussion about how to alleviate that. So, I asked about simulation and modeling and things like that. I think I'd like to hear a little more about how do we alleviate some of the queuing going westbound on Oak Grove, as opposed to adding another stoplight on Carolyn and Oak Grove. But I'm just not convinced that this is a good solution. So I'd like to hear a little bit more, and that's all I have to say about that.
All right, well, I have I have a few things. One is, so I've walked, biked, driven through that intersection. I'm kind of in a stage in my kids' lives where I'm the one, I think, who's driving through it probably the most for the moment. I have a lot of skin in the game here. I am in my first year of looking at the next 7 years of having at least one of my children having to move through this intersection fairly regularly. So, my kids' well-being is at stake. I care a lot about this, and I'm really glad that Commissioner Israel pushed this, because it was on her radar before it was on mine. Now here I am. I've arrived as a high school parent, and it's on my radar in a big way. So I would say, having had experience with this intersection, this is like, to me, an insanely unsafe intersection. I am not seeing the argument that these improvements would be anything but improvements. I'm still on the fence about the flashing yellow signal, and I want to talk through it a little bit more, but I do think that either of these improvements I would vastly prefer than the current conditions as my children move through this intersection, like by a long way. I mean, I don't know if it's anyone within earshot even needs to hear this, because we all know it, but if you are on any side of this intersection other than the train tracks, you totally unexpectedly we'll have cars coming eastbound on Oak Grove fast and then swinging into a turn on Carolyn. And that's super unsafe. I don't see how anything that has been suggested is less safe than that. And I myself have almost gotten hit that way. I could see a kid getting hit that way. We have bicycles sitting on the southbound lane on Carolyn, right in the middle. And you know, like, there's nothing safe about this intersection. So I am comfortable saying that these improvements would be good. I'm you know, in the decision process of which one. I want to address the idea that it's not in the top 10 intersection. I mean, look, we don't have, thankfully, we don't have enough human collisions in Burlingame for the measurements to be statistically significant, right? We have them. I know because I've been on the commission for 12 years. One of the higher ones is near my house, but it's not a high enough number to say that's statistically significant. I think we have to step back and use different measures of judgment. And one is that there's 2,000 kids there. There's a train track, there's very fast moving cars, and a weird situation of a three-way stop with one direction unimpeded. And like, I just, that's all I think you really need to hear. That is so in and of itself, so unusual, right? So I don't see the flashing yellow as less safe than what we have now. I think that there's a little bit of a trade-off. I mean, would the east-west phasing be safer for pedestrians? I think that's, maybe we could probe that a little bit more. There's obviously a trade-off there. No one ever likes trade-offs, but you know, we have seen changes in this city where we've created bad queuing and people get really mad, and we hear a lot about it, which is Mr. Fitzsimons, like, if you're detecting a little bit of anxiousness, it's because we had a different change where we have some really bad queuing. It's easy to see how you'll have bad queuing on Oak Grove, just even, like I said, even without school being in session, just a couple sports practices, and you know, you can see it gets busy. But I'm still willing to endure that if it means that I'm reducing the risk of a kid getting hit. And I don't know, to me, I think that's a real danger here. And, you know, just the data point, two more points. One, you know, just to the process point that everybody raised. Look, we never have as much data as we want, never. We always have to kind of make a call. And this never gets to us as soon as it should. And, Mr. Wong has had me in his ear for now 10 years about that. It's still true. We need to get these things earlier so we have more opportunity to tweak. I hope we have that here, but I've learned not to take the risk. This is sort of the point I was getting at. We've had these things come to us. You know, the first time I was chair, we were asked where to put the garage. And there were a lot of good opinions about where to put the garage. In the end, we said, well, don't put it in the middle, but other than that, you know, and I remember getting some guff from a council member who's still a council member saying, why didn't you just take a vote and tell us what you think? Because we didn't get a second bite at the apple. So that's what I'm trying to convey to everyone here tonight. It's based on my experience. Vice Chair Martos, you experienced that with me. And, you know, the last thing I'll say about the flashing yellow light is, you know, this is in some ways a very conservative town. People are a little bit, it's amazing to me kind of how the emotional reactions we get to novel traffic innovations, which I have no problem with, but I just dealing with the public, like, I'm fine with the traffic circle, but people will go on and on. So I do anticipate, for better or for worse, there will be a segment of the population that will see this flashing yellow arrow and just, you know, it'll be a cause of rage for years, I'll hear about that flashing yellow, and that's fine. If it's the right thing, I will hear about it, and I'll hear about it. If I think it's the safest and best thing, I'll happily hear about it, but I'll hear about it. So that's a lot of thoughts, I guess. I do think there's a question that is relevant here that we should address before we go any further, which is there a safety trade-off? It seems like queuing on the whole, not in every respect, but on the whole, queuing is better with the flashing yellow. There'll be a little less queuing, which does matter. I mean, people will, and by the way, if there's a lot of queuing, then it creates its own safety issues because people start freaking out and throwing U-turns and, you know, doing crazy things. So is there a trade-off between queuing and safety here with the flashing yellow? Is the flashing yellow less safe than the phased east-west? Mr. Fitzsimons, if you don't mind answering that question or trying to.
Let me find my unmute. So the point I was trying to make earlier was that you can stack up these alternatives by what is the safest and which one is the least safe. And generally speaking, with the protected left turn for a pedestrian in a crosswalk, there's no left turn or through traffic coming towards them when they have the walk display, right? Right turners still, but no left turners and no through traffic. The least safe would be the permissive, just simply the green ball. And is it measurable? I don't think there's enough data out there for me to know that yet. I'll try to find that out though with some of the ones that have been in place for a few years to see if there's any statistics that can come to light, shed some light on this. But to me, if you're going to make a left turn and you've got a green ball in front of you, and you compare that to making a left turn and you've got a green ball and a flashing yellow arrow, that flashing yellow arrow would make me as a driver be just a little bit more cautious before I hit the gas and go. So I would say that, you know, there is a ranking. The point I was trying to make earlier though was that, you know, we have signals all over the place that have permissive on the side streets, just the green ball. There's no arrows or anything. So anybody who's crossing the main street has side street traffic wanting to make a left turn at the same time as them or a right turn at the same time as them. And we don't have statistics saying that that's unsafe. So I don't want to leave you guys thinking that I told you tonight that the green ball is unsafe, because statistically it's just not. And I think that the flashing yellow arrow is a little bit safer than just the green ball, the permissive movement. And obviously the left turn phase, the old fashioned left turn phase that keeps those left turners from having a green when there's a pedestrian, you know, in conflict with their path, that would be the safest. But I don't want to leave you all here thinking that I told you tonight that the green ball or the flashing yellow arrow is unsafe. That's not what I'm trying to say. I'm just trying to say of the three options that the old fashioned protected with the arrows, the green arrows and the red arrows, is the safest of the three. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
But I will definitely follow up with these other agencies that have been installing flashing yellow arrow. Hopefully I'll find at least one or two that are close to schools, ideally high schools where we have young drivers as part of the driving population, and get some direct feedback from them. And I'll even go so far as to reach out to the school staff and the people who might be, you know, in charge of the safety around the perimeter of the campus, and just see what I can find out and bring you back something that's really relevant, assuming I'm coming back.
And just I apologize if I'm not clear on this, but the east-west phasing option, does that entail what you're saying, where it's just a straight green arrow and straight red arrow? That's not an option. Is that an option really that's before us tonight? I didn't
So
hear.
at Carolyn, I don't know if you remember when I started the presentation, I was making the point that we wanted to be able, when the train is approaching, to be able to give the traffic moving away from the track a green ball and a green arrow. So they know that whichever way they're going, they have the green, they can go. Mm-hmm. So that's what kind of led us to wanting to have either the split phase or the flashing yellow arrow. Does that make sense? We wanted that track clearance sequence to be unambiguous and very clear that when they saw that green ball, if they were making the left turn especially, that they didn't have to worry about oncoming throughs, that they knew they had the right to just go and clear the track. That's the ultimate rail safety operation.
The split phase is a green arrow or a red arrow?
Split phase typically will have a green ball and a green arrow right underneath it. And then on the far left, quite often it's just the green arrow, and on the far right, it's typically just the ball. But as a driver, when you're approaching a split phase intersection, you usually will see a green ball coupled with a green arrow of some kind or another.
So in that scenario, I mean, apologies if I'm stating the obvious, but it's hard to keep all this straight. In that scenario, you still have, say, a kid crossing Carolyn with their bike, and an Oak Grove eastbound driver with a green arrow. You still have a potentially dangerous conflict, right? I mean, it's the kid.
Well, that would only be if the kid were crossing against the light.
No, I mean, the kid's crossing Carolyn, so they're going along Oak Grove, right? So the light got a green, there's a green arrow, it's all moving east-west. The kid's got a green.
Are they crossing on that south leg or on the north leg?
Imagine a kid, and this was the
south leg.
I would come from my house. You ride a bike up Carolyn.
Right.
So you're on the west side of Carolyn going southbound. And then you get to the light and you just want to cross over to go pedestrian to get your bike to school. I'm just giving a hypo. I mean, you will still have, you could still have east-west pedestrians coming into conflict with east-west cars who are turning northbound. Like that's, even with a green arrow, you still have that risk, right? I mean, that's still a risk and a conflict.
Through the chair?
Yeah, please, Mr. Wong.
Clarify the situation you're describing. Say someone's coming from the northeast corner and trying to cross over, crossing Carolyn towards like Oak Grove Market, the barber shop. They're crossing that crosswalk.
Mm.
So eastbound traffic, if there's a green arrow, the pedestrian signal will be red. It will be red. They shouldn't be crossing. That's what Mr. Fitzsimons is.
Got it. Okay. And that's where a pedestrian might have a little bit of a delay. Right. Okay. So then the risk is a little different, which is the kids just get impatient. Okay. Well, that's all helpful to me. Do people have? I'm sorry, I kind of came back with other questions. Do people have other questions before we talk about what we want to do next?
No, but for me, it would be helpful to summarize just amongst us commissioners, summarize. So if we don't do, well, you and I both feel that if we don't do anything, that's worse than doing one of these two build options.
Yes.
So that's, half of the commissioners. Okay. If we go with flashing yellows, we feel that we might be putting pedestrians at more risk than if we don't have flashing yellows. The benefit of having flashing yellows is that you decrease car queuing because they have more time where they would be allowed, if safe and no one's in the crosswalks, to make their left-hand turns. And then the con for pedestrian delay waiting to have to cross is worse with which option again? It's with the without the flashing yellows, right? Because they have to wait until it cycles all the way through. Can you just refresh my memory?
That was the worst, and that's particularly if you're leaving the high school and going north to the shops. That was the worst one that we talked about, and it's worse for the split phase. It's not as bad, but still a long delay for pedestrians with the flashing yellow arrow.
Okay. So I just wanted to sort of, did I get that right, guys? Is that what you're all sort of hearing?
I would just, the only thing, Commissioner Israel, is I'm not 100% sold that the flashing yellow is more dangerous. I'm undecided on that point.
I am as well. I am as well. I mean, really, and we shouldn't be comparing like a solid green ball to a flashing yellow arrow, because what we have now is a stop sign compared to a flashing yellow
We don't
arrow,
even have a
right?
stop sign. And let's be clear. I mean, we don't even have a stop sign for the eastbound.
For the, well, that's true. That's true. So like if I had to make a motion, I would move that we move forward with adopting one of these two options. I don't know if any of you all feel like you have the information you need to choose one tonight, or if you do want to come back next month.
I have one more question, actually, and I think this goes off when we were doing the agenda setting. Mr. Wong said something to me. Is it true that we could do the yellow, flashing yellow, and it would be easy to convert to the split phasing? And is it true conversely? If we don't do the flashing yellow, is it a bigger jump to then decide we want the flashing yellow than vice versa? If we do the flashing yellow, try it, everyone hates it, we could just pull it out and go to the split phasing. Is one easier to go to than the other?
Through the chair, it's not both ways, because we need the wiring in for the flashing yellow. So we'd have to plan for that. I bet Mr. Simons can correct me, but I think that's where we're going. If we went from flashing yellow back, it's much easier because you just unhook it and retime the signal. But the other way, if you didn't plan for it, you wouldn't have the wiring. And that's not to say we couldn't have it, but that's you'd have to plan for it as far as infrastructure.
That helps me a lot in where I come out.
And sorry, back through the chair. Again, tonight was an update, right? We specifically said, we weren't going to make a motion. So what we will do is, we may have put it on the crystal ball. It hasn't been agendized for city council, but we'll definitely we'll talk to our director and then try to postpone that, understanding based on the feedback we got tonight. And then that's where we'll come back and see if, we'll try to address it. You're right. We talked about queuing to show you a simulation with that. And to, point out some of those, just what that is, just to help you identify that. I think what Commissioner Israel was trying to balance out is, no build versus these other options, right? We still, sounds like the commission still may need, for those who are in favor of a build scenario, of trying to determine which one that works for our community. Let's put it in that sense, because it is important to talk about. We put in some new things, we put in Sharrows and then we've gotten heat for it because folks were new to it, right? But understanding that, the reason we went to try with a flashing yellow and we didn't automatically mimic what was happening at Oak Grove, California, was we're trying to, we always knew there was going to be a trade-off of delay. We were just trying to reduce that to try to get it where, okay, maybe it is, we're never going to get it to where it's equal, but we can try to improve upon that so that your decision or council's decision was a little easier, right? I mean, if we said it was just going to be a huge delay versus safety, and then that's a difficult one, right?
Yeah.
I mean, safety wins, but at that, I mean, you're going to have a lot of angry people going through the intersection. So we were just trying to chip away at that, and that was an option. So what we will do is, again, we will try, Ms. Maya and I will work our best to bring it back here with the, based on the feedback tonight, and just let them understand what what the commission's desires were, just to see some more of this. And I will give it back to chair, but it looks like Commissioner Lee has her hand up.
Well, I want to give Commissioner Lee, with all due respect, I think Commissioner Martos has been waiting his turn. So I want to give Commissioner Martos a chance here to weigh in. Commissioner Lee, I'll come back to you.
No, I've spoken my piece. I'm good. You can go to Commissioner Lee.
Okay, Commissioner Lee.
I had two more questions. One thing that would help me be more comfortable with this project would be that other pedestrian improvements were made in the intersection at the same time. So I'd like staff to consider that we improve the other parts of the intersection, such as the unrestricted right-hand turn as you're driving north on California Drive, you can turn unrestricted right in front of pedestrians onto Oak Grove, heading eastbound then. So if pedestrian improvements were made in other ways, perhaps pedestrian refuge islands. And then the other question was, could pedestrians be given some priority when they push that button? So that, or if a train comes through, but a pedestrian is still stuck on the piece of land that is part of the train tracks, once the motor vehicle's clear, can a pedestrian get a green light? The through traffic keeps a red light, but the pedestrian can get a green light. And then secondly, going through the phases of the cycle, could pedestrians be prioritized in that area so that they don't just wait the regular cycle? If they're there, they get a green light. And those things would help me to consider that doing something as opposed to doing nothing, because I don't think of the intersection as broken other than it could use pedestrian improvements. Thank you.
Just one clarification. I thought I heard in this presentation that we are going to add the no right turn on red in that precise corner off California onto Oak Grove. That is part of the plan, right?
That was mentioned, but that's in the context of the rail sequence when the train is approaching.
Okay.
It wasn't intended to be when there's no train coming.
It wouldn't be a constant. It wouldn't be just a
Through the chair, it's to minimize that, we'll call filling the box, right? When the train comes, we've got everyone on the southbound trying to squeeze in there, regardless if it was their turn at this, if they were to yield the right of way, they just sneak in there because the others can't go.
That's something that flashes when the train comes, but it's not a permanent sign.
No, it's black when it's not operation, and then it turns on when it doesn't flash. It stays lit.
Right. I meant it comes on. It's not. Yeah. Okay.
That might be sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. I just wanted to say that might be, I thought that I did understand that when you were doing presentation, Mr. Fitzsimons, but that is definitely worthwhile looking at, right? Adding that no right turn at Oak Grove on red, will that make it safer on the other side? That's something maybe we should look at too for next month.
Okay. Okay, Mr. Wong, I guess then if it's safe, we could leave it for tonight. We don't need a motion, but I would just really strongly urge that, I want to make sure we do opine on this before it gets to council. So whether that means we get another, Mr. Fitzsimons generously gives us his time or not. I do want to make sure it does come back to us before it goes to council and we get to weigh in and say where we come out on this.
No, and that's our goal. Sorry, through the chair. Based on tonight's feedback from everyone, we're in the ballpark, and we'll work on that. And our goal is to get you guys another bite at the apple, so to speak. But we can get more information to make you guys make a better decision, right? Or make a better motion. So that's what we'll be working towards.
Okay. Mr. Israelit, I see your hand.
I just wanted to thank Mr. Fitzsimon for such a concise, clear, easy to understand presentation. That might have been like the easiest presentation I've seen since I became a commissioner. So thank you very much for joining us tonight, and thanks for making it so easy to understand. Your presentation was great. I appreciate it.
Thank you, and thank the staff that's here tonight too, who reviewed that presentation a couple times and made it smooth.
Thank you, staff.
You're very patient. Thank you. Thank you, staff, of course, and thank you. He's not here anymore, but thank you, Mr. Velasco, who I think his input was very helpful, even if I may not be leaning where I think he wants me to lean. I still thought it was very useful. So thank you, everybody. And I think with that, we can move on to the next item. That takes us to engineering division reports.
Thank you, Steve. Sure. All right, thank you, commissioners. Tonight, the engineering division report, just give you an update on a bunch of projects that we have going or will have going. Just wanted to give you, just looking at the Broadway, Burlingame Avenue parklets, just wanted to give you the numbers that we have out there. So right now, this is the latest that's happening, especially since the businesses have been able to reopen for outdoor dining. In total, we've lost, we have 41 parklets, a total loss of 84 parking spaces, and that's, as you can see, divided up by 34 businesses on Burlingame Avenue and 16 on, 34 business parklets, 16 on Burlingame Avenue and 18 on the side streets. Whereas on Broadway, we've got only 7 businesses with parklets and a loss of about 17 spaces. So just to give you those, so if we have to discuss this at a future point, you'll know where we're at. Also, just as in case you weren't aware, I think I've mentioned it earlier, but this program has been at least extended until Labor Day. So that was to accommodate some of the businesses. As you can see, they've definitely built out some more of their parklets. So to give them that option, so they knew they weren't going to build something and have 2 weeks later take it down. Peninsula Overcrossing, I believe, well, I'm not sure if you were able to attend. Staff just kind of attended the meeting. We just sat back there. Again, it was more of an update for the residents to get back to where we are now. But more importantly, there was a schedule that was provided. And the important parts are, the environmental documentation, they expect to be later this year to come out or early next year. And that's important because that's where the comments that we make, or as the city makes, will be part of it, will be part of something they have to acknowledge and then respond to. So those dates, like I said, are late 2021, early 2022, and Caltrans expects to environmentally approve this potentially in summer of 2022. I see, Commissioner Israel's hand up. Oh, okay. Oh, but Commissioner Martos is.
Through the chair, Mr. Wong, I was wondering if, unfortunately, I was not able to attend, but did they talk about closure of Poplar, the southbound on-ramp to Poplar as part of this upgrade?
They mentioned that, and as far as Caltrans working through it, they would have to, it's, I think what we've been told before, that for this project, they would have to close that. There's not an option to keep that open or parts of it open, right? I think that's what you might be alluding to, whether you leave the on-ramp or off-ramp at Poplar and then have something at Peninsula.
Yeah, the southbound on-ramp.
Yeah, per Caltrans, the only way to move forward with that is the closure, because they want to eliminate that type of interchange.
Okay, I think that's a mistake, but okay. All right, thank you.
Chair Wetton, did you have more, or were you just, I thought you waved a hand, okay. Also in the staff report, you can see the link to the actual presentation they had, so we provide that. Lion Hope traffic calming, the contractors finished about 85% of the project, and now we're starting to work on the vertical components, and that's some of the circles, the curb stop, or what we're calling the little rubberized curb stops, are going in there, as well as the rubberized speed cushions. And so I know one was already installed along, Ms. Mai may correct me, but I believe it was Dwight, and another one, and they might have had a couple installations this week. So those are in, if you want some more details about where those are, but they're identified in the plan, but they have been put in, and we've been out there observing some of it. So folks are slowing down for those. They're pretty, they definitely, even if you ride the middle of it, they definitely give you a jolt. I've gone through it. Any questions on that?
Okay. I noticed, I live in the Lion Hope neighborhood. So I noticed a couple of things. First, over by where the tennis courts are at Washington Park.
Yes.
They did a design that shortens the distance of crossing toward the train station from the south side of Burlingame Avenue toward the train station. What I'm wondering is, again, are we putting the cart before the horse? Because we have a grant to redo that whole intersection. I'm wondering, why did we even spend the money on an intersection that's going to be redesigned again in a year. I just don't think that was prudent. I guess we should have just left that and saved the money is my comment, I guess. Then the other thing is at Bloomfield Road where it hits Rollins, you know, it's an enormously wide intersection for 2 lanes. And so there's this new island with the vertical features. But if you were trying to cross it walking, and there is a park that's a destination up there, it's very confusing and there's no crosswalk. So are they done at that section? It's just like you have to be dodging those vertical plastic pieces and then landing on that island in the middle of the intersection as a pedestrian. Is that completed or is there a crosswalk going through there? Do you know anything, Mr. Wong?
This might take that, but per the plan, there's not a crosswalk plan to go. You're talking parallel, a crosswalk parallel to Rollins, correct?
Correct, yes. Because it's weird now. I mean, it was awful before, but now it's weird. From awful to weird, but it's odd. You don't know what to do. It's just odd with all the cones and all the stripes and stuff.
And I mean, Ms. Meinman, correct me, but you know, if you go out there, the cones, those are meant to obviously reduce the speeds of traffic for folks crossing. But if there's another 2 legs for you to cross, and those 2 legs are actually shorter than the length on along Rollins. So it's not like you're crossing a longer distance when you use those new marked crosswalks.
Right. Okay.
So
I'll go look again.
that's what we're trying. That's what we're trying to achieve there, because yeah, having those those cars coming around those southbound right turns coming off there, and that's what we're trying to slow down. And we didn't want to obviously continue to put pedestrians there. So the better way to direct them is to go use the crosswalks that are out there.
Oh, you moved the crosswalk. I mean, you suggested that pedestrians go out of their way then?
I'm sorry, go on. If there are 2 existing crosswalks that will get you to that park, and if you measure out the distance, those 2 links are shorter than if you were to cross entirely Rollins, and it puts you get you out of that driver's view. So.
Okay, thank you.
And through the chair, if I may address the comment regarding the tennis courts. When we applied for the grant, the temporary improvements there has always been part of the report and study. And not knowing whether or not we were going to get the grant, we went ahead and not knowing when that portion of the work is going to be constructed, because the final phase of that intersection has always been part of possibly phase 3, right, with all the permanent installations. So with that, when we went out to bid and not knowing when that intersection, the final curb extensions and design will be in place, the temporary shortening of that crosswalk is to improve that intersection while we work on the final design. And then as far as Bloomfield and Rollins, I forget which, I believe it's Victoria and Rollins definitely is part of the bike path master plan for enhancement of crossing there. Mr. Wong and I had looked at both intersections and saw that in order to provide straighten out the crosswalk, if we were to put a crosswalk in there, we would need to do some modifications to the existing handicap ramps. And so I think what we're looking at is having that in place first before we put in a crosswalk that may not, be ideal for crossing at those locations.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
Next item is the RFP for the California Drive Bicycle Facility. We received 6 proposals. We narrowed it down to 2, and I think actually we're probably going to start negotiations with 1 to finalize it. And then the next meeting we'll let you know who that is, and there's a key to it, which will I believe Commissioner Lee made a comment previous meetings about coordination, and so we'll lead into that. But we'll make sure once we are at least on way of awarding them, we'll get you that information, not prematurely. Regarding the Burlingame Station improvements, we got 5 proposals, and now we're working on negotiating with 1. We've got that down, so we'll hopefully give you an update on that upcoming month. Hoover School, just to let you know, we submitted the request for authorization, so that allows us to advertise the project and seek bidders, construction bidders. So that's where we are. The package is going to Caltrans. Once they approve it, they issue us, they approve it and get us going. And so we look for this summer is the target date for the installation of that sidewalk on Summit Drive. The Broadway pedestrian street.
Before you move on, Mr. Wong?
Yes.
Sorry. Why do we need is that because it's county up there?
I'm sorry, just a clarification. It's Caltrans, they administer the federal contract. They're the overseeing of the paperwork. That's right. It has there's no Caltrans right away. They just happen to have to go, it's a federal process because of the grant funds, and they're the ones that review it. That's all, sorry.
Okay, that's just helpful. Okay, sorry to interrupt you.
Sorry, no, I clarify that. Thank you. I'm sorry, Hoover, the Broadway pedestrian street lighting. We're same process. We already went to Caltrans. They gave us our permission, so we're about to advertise this project. So again, this one's for also later this year, but this is install pedestrian scale street lighting along, replace them along Broadway, as well as extend it up to Rollins, the new pedestrian scale street lighting. So it'll be decorative street lights. So that one, hopefully we'll get these both done this summer. And then lastly, the Highland parking garage that you made the motion on last month, I'll be taking it, or the director and I will be taking it to council Tuesday, the 16th, Monday being President's Day. So invite you all to be there to provide support.
Mr. Wong, why don't you tell us now? I've got, and people forgive me if I'm looking at my phone, it's just for calendar purposes. What time's the meeting, and how far into the meeting do you think this will get? Because sometimes there's a lot that goes on before they get to one of these items.
I could tell you the former. I'm not sure about the latter. It starts the same time as ours, 7 o'clock. And then you just kind of have to look at the agenda, and we have our interim city attorney. Maybe he has a guest, but it depends on how long some of those items are discussed.
Yeah, I don't want to quote offhand. I know it does start at 7 p.m. on Tuesday, but I think it's actually going on consent, if I'm not mistaken. So it'd be at the beginning, but I may be wrong about that.
So if it goes on consent, they can even talk about it? Is it going to just? Someone
would have to pull it to talk about it, but I can confirm, and I'll write a note in the comments here.
Okay. I'll make an effort to be around and keep my ears open if we think there's going to. I think if it is worthwhile, I'm happy to speak in public comments and just say, hey, this is before you, and we gave it a lot of thought and think this is the best thing. Commissioner Martos, I see your hand is up, but you're on mute. Oh, there you go. Okay.
Got it. Yeah, just one go back on the Lion Hood. Ms. Mai, you mentioned the Victoria Rollins intersection there. I wanted to compliment the consultants, you, Mr. Wong. The traffic calming there has really been a big improvement. It significantly slowed down traffic coming off Rollins onto Victoria Road, and I know the residents are real happy about that. So thank you very much. That was a big plus, big improvement.
The city attorney has his hand up.
I do, Chair Wetton. Just wanted to give you a quick update. I pulled up the agenda. It's going to be the first public hearing that's happening. So right after the consent calendar. It's hard to predict what's actually going to come on the consent calendar and what's going to be talked about. There are some big items. The 220 Park project and the cannabis ordinance are both on that. So those could both theoretically be pulled. It could be a lot longer. But if that is not the case, it should be fairly early in the meeting. So just wanted to give you that update.
Well, the cannabis ordinance discussion should be some interesting listening.
Or you never know, maybe it won't get pulled and there won't be any discussion, but not sure.
All right, thank you for that, Mr. Spansel. I appreciate it. Okay, Mr. Wong, sorry.
All right, no problem, Chair. Just a couple other things that aren't on here. I wanted to point out that because it went in this past week, Truesdale, California, the hardened center line that has been installed, and Ms. Maya has been fortunate to go out there and she's witnessed it. And I've seen the video. Vehicles are slowing down to make that northbound left turn because they can't cut it anymore. So we'll continue to monitor that, but that's our initial after it just got installed. And the last thing is there's only 4 of you now, and that'll be for you for yet another meeting. The council plans to meet, I believe it's I had it on the other one, March 18th, to interview potential candidates to fill former Commissioner Bush's position. So yeah, stick it out one more month.
Mr. Wong, what's the deadline for people to apply?
I'll have to get back to you on that one.
Okay. But, I definitely would urge people to reach out through their networks and try and encourage people to apply and get a good sample for the council to choose from. So that's all I'll say.
I did have one question on the Broadway pedestrian lighting, if that's all right.
Sure.
Just wanted to know, are there any of those super tall LED greenish gray lights going in as part of that, or is it all down low pedestrian friendly lighting, or any of those freeway lights going in?
Through Chair, I believe it's the project's pedestrian improvements, so they are pedestrian scale lighting. Yeah, through that section. I'll take a look, and if that's different, I will report back to you if it's like a combination, because we do have along like Burlingame Avenue, we have the lower lights attached, and then above it there's a taller light. But I'll confirm that with you. But definitely pedestrian scale, and whether we have the roadway lighting, roadway safety lighting, I'll confirm that.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, Commissioner Israelite, please.
Mr. Wong, just out of curiosity, how are we paying for those lights? Is that the city, or is that a grant, or is that the merchant group? I'm just curious.
Absolutely, thank you. Sorry, I should have broken these down. So obviously the 2 RFPs that we had out, the California Drive and the rail station, those are definitely grant funded. God, I'm trying to think of the grant name, but the Summit Drive as well as the Broadway streetlights were part of one Bay Area grant. So those are federally, we got grants for those.
Awesome, thank you.
Sorry, with that, that's it for the engineer's report.
Okay. Okay, so that, thank you. We can move on to the next item, which is Police Department report. Sergeant Perna.
Hello, hello Commissioners. How's everyone? So you've seen the report, hopefully by now. 13 collisions in January, a great number of them. I think 4 or 5 of them were on private property or parking lots, just very minor like parking maneuver type accidents. 2 of them did involve bicycles. One was a vehicle bicycle incident at Burlingame Avenue in California. The other was a bicycle accident on Carolyn and Cadillac. Questions about any of those?
Well, I mean, I think everybody always wants to know about the bicycle incidents.
Yeah, so it was 2 bicycles northbound on Carolyn, and I guess they were side by side or close to side by side, and the bicycle on the, I guess it would be on the inside on the going northbound, turn right to go down to turn onto Carolyn eastbound, turn right onto eastbound Cadillac and cut off the other one, and they both crashed. So there were some minor injuries, but nothing serious.
And the other at California Drive and Burlingame Avenue, what happened there? And that is one of our top pedestrian hit spots, by the way.
Yeah, I agree. So that one, the bicyclist was actually riding in the crosswalk and rode eastbound in the crosswalk and against the, there's witnesses that verified against the, the stop, don't walk type thing. And the driver having a green light proceeded forward, not expecting to see a bicyclist traveling, much faster than a pedestrian. So that bicyclist was struck by the vehicle.
That was a left turner hitting the bike?
No, it was a motorist going straight, going northbound, I believe. On let me double check. I'm gonna look it up to make sure I have it actual. But the bicyclist was in the crosswalk, and the vehicle was just traveling northbound. I believe in a facing a green light.
Okay, thank you.
I have Sergeant Perna, sorry, I have two others, just looking at the locations. One, we always ask about, as you know, El Camino and Floribunda, but the collision type is other.
Let me look at that. So which one is that? I'm sorry. El Camino, you said?
El Camino and Floribunda.
Oh, okay, yeah. So that was.
It was on the 18th.
Let me look that up. Yeah. So just on the bicyclist one, this was the bicyclist was eastbound on the south sidewalk of Burlingame Avenue, and the vehicle was northbound on California Drive, facing a green traffic signal. And then the other one here, let's see. The Floribunda 2100. So that was listed as a non-collision, and I'm trying to figure out why that was.
What does that mean? What would put it on here if it was a non-collision?
The vehicles didn't actually strike each other, but some type of an error made the collision occur. So this was it's listed as other. What's this? I'm trying to figure out what kind of a vehicle this was. It says Honda, but something tells me it was a motorcycle. Yeah, so this was like a scooter. That's why it's listed as other. It probably should have just been listed as a motorcycle. But in any case, the motorcycle was northbound El Camino in the #1 lane, approaching intersection with Floribunda, approximately 30 miles per hour. A vehicle in front of him suddenly applied its brakes. He applied his brakes, causing him to lose control of the scooter, and which caused him to fall. But in that case, even if a motorist did stop abruptly in front of them, really the primary collision factor in that incident would be unsafe speed by the motorcyclist not being able to react to what's in front of them. So it was a non-collision because no one actually. The two vehicles didn't collide. However, the scooter, the motorcycle did lose control and crash.
And then I hate to ask you about a bunch, but these are intersections.
No problem. It's what
consequential. The California and Oak Grove, there was a vehicle collision.
California Oak Grove 2100234. I think this was on the other report as well. Let's see. Vehicle northbound on California Drive behind another vehicle, V2, which was northbound. The first vehicle slowed for something up ahead. D1, the other vehicle swerved behind. This is kind of convoluted. Hold on, let me see if I can see seems like there's three collisions here. Let's go. Yeah, so one one vehicle was driving northbound on California Drive behind V2. V1 or V2 slowed down for a vehicle in front of her or that motorist, causing V1 to swerve and swipe V3, which was parked. So basically, they something happened in front of them. They swerved out of the way and struck a parked vehicle. So the primary collision factor in that one was following too closely.
Got it. Okay, thank you. Thanks for bearing with us. And is this? I think we were going to talk briefly about the progress with the hot map and the tool we're going to use to see where.
Yeah, so we've made some progress on that. I used a sampling of data that was here. Actually, see, I tried this earlier, so hopefully it still works. Google Chrome. Okay. This and then share. Hopefully you guys can see that. Yes, okay. So what this is this is just a Google map, which I imported the all the pedestrian collisions and all the bicycle collisions, but the sampling of data, just to show you, because I've been working on this for a while, was January 1st, 2017 to November 30th, 2020. So it doesn't have anything super current on it yet. You know, I just want to make sure we had, you know, good data. But basically we did an overlay. Oops, sorry about that. And then it will show you kind of basically, you know, what you guys had asked for. This is only pedestrian and bicycle collisions. I did them both in different colors. You know, obviously the pedestrian's a little person and the other one's a little bicycle. So they're not, it's not perfect, but I think it's pretty good. I think it's, you know, and I think we could add to this. I could do these just based on what you want to see. So, you know, I could put the monthly reports into a report like this. The problem is with all the vehicle collisions, it does tend to just gum it up, and it just kind of makes everything a circle. But I agree that with the commissioners that said that, you know, these are kind of the more important ones for you know, to see exactly these are the ones where people are getting injured and stuff. So, but if there's any that you'd like to, any areas you want me to zoom in here or get a little closer on, some of them I had to go into. So if you go into each individual crash, it'll pull up a little window for me. You guys can see it too, that has basically the same information that was in the report that we make. So, you know, this one says it occurred at Carolyn and Toyon. I might have to move, you know, like we might find one like, oops, that's not where it goes. I have to move it a little bit, you know, to where it actually should be. But this was fairly easy to do. So like I said, I could do these for you know, moving forward. I don't know how we want to do it. If we just want to keep adding to one, or if we want a monthly one, or what. I'm open to suggestions on that.
So two things real quick. One is I think I personally like the cumulative because, you know, 1 month is a small, I like a bigger sample. Sure. I would like, I don't know if there's a way that maybe it has to happen a different way. I would like to see sort of a similar map for vehicles. I don't know if this format may not work for it because, like you said, it's just a bunch of circles.
So we could do that. We could just keep it separately, or, you know, this was easy to where we could just take off the vehicles like so, you know.
Right. So add the vehicles and just click them in and off.
Right.
Yeah. Because just, you know, again, the history lesson in I know it's a while ago now, but, you know, when Caltrans came along and wanted to do all this work on Floribunda, and it was all based on this idea that there were more accidents at Floribunda and El Camino than anywhere else. And so they had to do this giant project that no one wanted them to do. And, you know, when we looked at our own data, we were like, it's not true. This is not the worst intersection. It's not even close. So it's good for us to have that handy. I mean, we heard it in the discussion tonight about what the worst intersection is. So I think it would be useful to have that for vehicles along with everything else. If we had like we knew what our hot intersections were, and which intersections have a long history. Some intersections happen to be pretty bad for vehicles. You know, Ray Rosedale's kind of always one that sticks in my mind as a perennial one where there's just lots of accidents there.
So a quick question. The two pedestrians that were hit at California Drive and I don't know, does anyone remember what it was? a month or two ago.
I think that was at Howard.
No, it was further north. It was north of Broadway. And the driver said it was dark. Well, duh.
Yeah.
But anyway, would that count as 2 pedestrian heads? Would that be 2 little yellows then when that comes up on your map?
No, it would be 1. And then when you clicked into it here, it would show that there were 2 injuries.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, because it was 1 collision hit 2 people.
Right.
Okay, gotcha. And then the bicyclist that was hit at California Drive in Oak Grove, was that the was that person killed? Am I mistaken? What was that?
So this is the one from 2017. We had 1 minor injury and 1 major injury. No, this one was not a fatality. There hasn't been one there that I'm aware of since I've been in the traffic bureau. There was that one where the gentleman unfortunately was killed. He was in like one of those sit down bicycles. I think that was on El Camino though. And then there's been some fatal motorcycle accidents on El Camino. I know that, but I don't recall of a bicycle fatal on California recently, like within the last couple of years at least.
Okay.
More than 5 probably.
Okay, thank you.
Sergeant,
we should probably go back to 5 years though, right? To get at least a decent sampling.
Yeah, but see this again, I was just trying to I don't know why I sort of arbitrarily chose 3 years. But yeah, absolutely. I mean, I could redo this with 5 years, have it for you for the next meeting. And then I could break it out a little bit differently to show, I could add, 1 for vehicles. So we could just have all 3 on there.
It's really nice. Thank you.
No problem. Yeah, it was a great idea. It was fairly simple. So I just had to figure out how to do it.
this is great, Sergeant Perna. This is like even better than I thought it could be. So this is exactly what I wanted.
Great.
So thank you.
Are there any areas on here that you wanted to look closer at? There were more on the Airport Boulevard area that I seem to be a lot of bicycle accidents out here, but this has changed significantly. So, this is 2018, 2017. That was a 2020. Looks like there was a couple in 2019. Looks like there was about 1 or 2 a year out here. Broadway seems to be kind of a hotspot for pedestrians. Just in general. It's, Laguna, Chula Vista, California. Trying to see if there's any others that stood out. Truesdale, these are some of the ones that I think we already spoke about. So yeah, definitely. So the changes that you'd like to see are 5 years and add vehicles.
Yeah,
Okay.
I think so. And just, yeah, I think that would be good. I know that we've had 1 or 2 deaths on Hillside and Truesdale, but it may have predated 2017, but I know that, we've had that.
I could look at maybe coding those like a whole different color too, so they stand out a little more.
Yeah.
I don't know if I could do major injury and minor injury. That might be more.
This is good. I think, look, if a car hits a person, it's an important data point.
Yeah,
that we have to guard against, and the consequences we know can range all the way up to the worst. It's interesting to see. How these scatter. When you zoom in, it doesn't seem like there's any one particular intersection that has multiple. Even when you zoom in on Broadway, each hit is a different block. There's no one intersection you can say multiple hits.
Right. Well, if you look at California, for example, I'm sorry, Truesdale and California here. They're not right on top of each other.
Is that the police department where someone got hit?
Yeah. What's that?
Is that the police department where there was a hit?
Yeah, this is the police department would be here. This would be the thing. This guy right here, see, this is just, this is working off of like a GPS. So this says California and Truesdale. That's what I was talking about. So this guy I should probably move. I'm not logged into my, like the panel where I could change it, but yes, this is an example of one that I would need to just move a little bit over here.
Got it. Okay.
But yeah, that's the police station there, yes.
Okay.
One other suggestion might be to add a little symbol for where the schools are.
That's doable too. I think we might actually have
I
something
mean,
like
so
that.
we can see where they're clustered by the schools. I mean, we know what streets they're on, but to see the actual school building would help me.
Sure. Yeah, we could do that. I mean, what happened was I had to put it in this map just because it became a little busy with like, it would put on like Starbucks and, you know, businesses, you know how Google does. So I had to do one that was like plain, but adding, I think I have a school map, so I could incorporate that into the map. That won't be an issue.
Okay.
Any other questions on that? Or here, I'll zoom out a little bit more for you guys again.
Yeah, I just reiterate, I really appreciate the extra work on this. I think it's helpful. It's going to be a really helpful tool in the future as we discuss these issues, and to have this map ready to go as we're talking about something hard and just get a sense. It's very useful. Okay, so with that, I think we could move on to the next topic. So are we, I'm just seeing if we even have, we have farmers market on here. I think sadly, we're going to probably pass on that until we got maybe a few more months, maybe when the warm weather comes back and people have vaccines in their arms, we'll have an opportunity to go out to the farmers market. Maybe our new commissioners will have a chance to do that, which you might have heard tonight is always a good experience, and former Commissioner Launder will still be there. And then from there, we can move on to TSPC Chair and Commissioners Communications. I'll just kick off. There was a communication to me from the Silicon Valley, I believe it was Silicon Valley Bike Coalition, where they were looking for the city, and I'm going to keep coordinating this with city staff to for the city to do a presentation. They're doing basically a series of city presentations up and down the ECR corridor, and the Burlingame wants to participate. So we'll be doing that, and that was a communication to me. Other than that, I don't have anything. Does anybody else have anything?
I just wanted to follow up with the two communications that I had last month. I received another email from Andrea Papajohn, who had asked about a convex concave mirror at that dogleg curve in a road where there are a lot of people walking in COVID. So I just wanted to find out about that. And then I was actually curious with Mr. Sam Israelit's suggestion on El Camino in front of the Lenardi's Plaza. I just wanted to hear back from you about, like, if you have had a chance to reach out to Caltrans and how receptive and how receptive were they to hear from us at all about anything?
Sure, I'll go last one first. I did reach out to Caltrans. I have not received word back from, but I'll follow up on that. I indicated the entire scenario made by Mr. Sam Israel. The other, I will contact Ms. Andrea Papajohn regarding the convex mirror, because as I might have mentioned last meeting, we don't install mirrors in the city right away. We just don't have that. There's no standard for that, and it's difficult to try to aim that or what happens to it if something goes wrong and if we get noticed. But we will go up there. I haven't had a chance to go up there and take a look and see if there's something else that might mitigate that. So I will contact her, and she's worked with us and for us. So we will, I know her.
Awesome. Okay, thank you. I was just kind of curious.
Thanks, Commissioner Israelit. Hello to Mr. Sam Israelit. I've spent the better part of the last few weeks negotiating against BCG, by the way, so hello to him. And the Commissioner Martos, did you have anything?
I had no communications now.
Okay, Commissioner Lee, are you any communication? Okay. All right, well then we can close item 7. That brings us to the subcommittee reports. For downtown parking, I mean, I think everybody heard what's going on. I'm going to do my best to go to the city council meeting since the Highlands Garage will be possibly on the agenda. Commissioner Martos, were you going to add something?
Yeah, I just wanted to, through the.
Wait, we lost your sound. Commissioner Martos, try hitting the mute button again. There you go.
Okay, better. Through the chair, Mr. Wong, I wanted to ask about the schedule for building the garage. Are we on schedule, and what's the expected completion date?
Through the chair, it should be, it could be coming up pretty quick. It's supposed to be spring, and it would be sometime in March. But I'll try to get the latest, because they're still doing, obviously they're still doing work on that, but I'll get the latest from our staff, my colleagues.
Okay.
Vice Chair Martos froze.
Oh. He'll catch up. Moving on, I think we're gonna Commissioner Lee, if there's one of these committees that there's 2 committees that has an opening. If you want to join one of those, that's an open invitation. Otherwise, we can sit on these committee assignments until we get our 5th commissioner.
I was thinking about Broadway, but if I recall, the downtown committee is called Downtown Parking and Access. Is that correct? The full name? But Broadway is only called Broadway Parking. But if we were to expand it to access to Broadway or Broadway improvements or Broadway issues, then I'd be happy to go on that. But if it's only about parking, no. But things like Broadway lighting just came up, or the, what's that called? The overpass, the Caltrain overpass. If that could be part of the Broadway committee, then I would be happy to be on Broadway, but not if it's just parking.
I think we could change the name, and it's not really just about parking. I mean, we generally refer to it as all things Broadway that has to do with the Teaspoon Committee, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think when we formed it, there was kind of an observation, which we studied, that there was some significant parking constraints, which obviously, COVID threw that all in the air, but I don't think we're wedded to that it being so narrow. I have no objection. I don't think there's anyone else left to object. It looks like we lost Commissioner Martos to do.
Maybe Martos is trying to rejoin, but yeah.
Broadway transportation and parking, just like our.
Oh, I think we could just call it Broadway district or Broadway issues and leave it really open. It could let whoever's on it, us commissioners, decide what we thought the issues were. Why limit ourselves?
Yeah, no, I agree.
I like that.
I mean, you could just mirror TSPC. You could mirror what we say for downtown. Either way, I'm fine, and I'm happy to have you join that committee and get engaged. And we'll have to figure out for the new commissioner how we'll handle city-wide transportation alternatives. That'll be interesting to figure out where we put that. Okay, so let's talk about, I'm going to gavel that one out, and let's talk about future agenda items. I think we've got a couple low-hanging fruit here, right? So one is tonight we want to bring back Oak Grove, and 2 is Ms. Beatty, saying there was with looking at the priorities with BPAC, which sounds like a great idea.
Yeah, so they have their list of top 20 projects, and they're trying to keep it under the 100,000. So that's the budget for the year. So that'd be great to add that to the agenda.
So I think it's just a question of timing. It's February. Do we want to try and tackle? I mean, I guess we don't know if the Oak Grove thing will come back next month. I mean, ideally, maybe we stagger it so we're taking one of those a night. Those are two big topics.
And through the chair, I'll talk to Ms. Mai to see how the bike ped master plan, that list goes. Yeah, how prepared we're to bring that forward. I think we're in pretty good shape because we've been discussing this internally as far as trying to budget for that. We're working on our budgeting for the upcoming year. And so I'll talk to her to confirm that, though. She dropped off for the night. Okay. So, and then, yeah, we'll try to stagger it, but I'll try to give W-Trans enough time so we come back and we can answer most of those questions.
Okay, and if we could get a BPAC's list also, please, Mr. Wong. They have
the chair could forward it.
Do it.
We can get the chair to forward it to us, and we can, yeah, combine it as a meeting. And if you want both up there, and ours are, yeah, being taken off the bike ped master plan. So.
And then I don't think this is in the next month or so. I think I need to just get working on it, which is I would like to start talking to the Planning Commission about trying to do something maybe middle of the year about the EV. Yeah. I mean, people, if they're reading the news, I mean, you know, GM is going to stop selling internal combustion engine vehicles in 14 years, and we're going to have the same buildings. So someone's going to need to park, people are going to need to place to plug in all these EVs. They're parking in our multi-residential buildings. But that's, I know I'm a broken record. Is there any other items out there that we think is going to need to go on the agenda the next month or so? Mr. Wong, do you see anything coming that we should have on our radar?
You know, and some of them might just be updates. El Camino Real renewal project. Maybe there's a little bit more on Peninsula, but that's it for right now. Sorry, a little late in the night, drawing a blank on some of it. But
okay.
Again, we'll discuss at our meeting, and I think it's a short turnaround this time, right? February being the shorter month, so it'll be upon us before we know it. So
right. Yeah. Okay.
Well, I may add, since we spend that much time, but Commissioner Bush probably needs a send off at some point.
Yes.
So
yes. Thank you.
We're in the mode.
Yeah.
But we can talk about that.
I have to get out my author's pen again. Write another proclamation. So okay, well, I'll get on that. Although I have to say, I mean, I was glad I had to sit down and write that for Jeff. When I finally could get my head together and sit down and do it, it was a good exercise. I was glad I could. Okay. All right. Well, I think that everyone should feel free to ping me if I'm sorry, Commissioner Lee.
10:30. No.
Oh yeah. All right. Sorry, I thought I was overlooking a hand. Okay. People should feel free to ping me if they want something else on the agenda. And it sounds like we have a couple items ahead of us, and we'll go from there. So thank you for hanging in, everybody.
Thank you all.